Hello and welcome to the Beauty of Human Biology. I am your host, Tricia Reid. We're going to be exploring the language of the chakras and understanding that felt experience of being a human. I look forward to our journey together. My guest today is Dr. John Gray. John Gray has written over 20 books. His most recent book is Beyond Mars and Venus, which is new relationship skills for our complex modern world. His Mars-Venus book series has forever changed the way men and women view relationships. John helps people understand and respect their differences in both personal and professional relationships. His approach combines specific communication techniques with healthy, nutritional choices that create the brain and body chemistry for lasting health, happiness, and romance. John's works focus on understanding the opposite sex, to relate with empathy and clarity, to improve communication, to date with confidence, to find your soulmate, and to feel fulfilled in your relationship, to express your full self and grow in love.
Hey, Tricia. So sorry.
Hi, that's okay. How are you, John?
Oh, I'm good. I'm very good. Just I get these things backed up on each other and I get late. So
Well,
anyway,
you're a popular guy. Let's be real.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for joining me. The reason I invited you, as outlined, was to focus on healing the heart. And, with all your life's work, I felt like you would be a really amazing contributor to that.
Yeah, I'm just going to sit down then if we're going to do that.
Sure. Okay.
I've been standing all day.
Fantastic. Relax. We need you to be here with us because
Okay. Now, this is a big subject. Did you know my wife died?
I did not know that. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry for your
So,
loss.
2 years ago, I'm still in the grieving process. So I can talk about this really quite well in terms of how
Yes.
we heal our
Yes.
broken hearts. My brother committed suicide. My mother died of an accident. My father was found dead in the trunk of his car. These are big losses in my life. And I learned my wife had a lot of losses too. We went to a lot of funerals in our marriage. So I'm very accustomed to the healing process. And even divorce is a major, major wound. Before I was married to Bonnie, I was married to another woman for 2 years. And then she fell in love with another man. And that was devastating for me. I'm kind of a romantic, and it was shocking to me. And so anyway, I've written a lot of books on healing the heart and so forth. And so I'm happy to do this interview.
That would be lovely. Thank you. Thank you. So take it away, John. I mean, what we're focusing on here is the effects of a broken heart on the biology and what it can do and how can we work with it. And I mean, just please guide us where you think divine is asking you to go.
Well, the first step that comes about is there was at one conference I spoke at, it was on grieving the loss of a child. And, there's a whole thing in the grieving industry, so to speak, that you never overcome the pain. And you do. They just never learned how to heal the pain. It doesn't mean you're happy your partner left or someone died. It means that the pain is gone. And there's more love in your heart for that person and for your life, and an acceptance that it couldn't have been any other way. See, when we keep thinking, if I should have, would have, could have, it couldn't have been any other way. And that's called forgiveness. Jerry Jampolsky coined that phrase. Oprah told me about it, one show I did with her. And it's such a brilliant way of looking at forgiveness is looking back in the past and realizing it couldn't have been any other way based upon what you knew and what they knew. We all do the best we can. But when we go into this victim place, we'll always be in pain. And there's a journey that you have to go through in order to heal the pain. So if I'm going to tell this story, if I'm going to talk about this, I have to talk from my own experience of, I on my honeymoon with my wife, Bonnie, of 34 years. And I'll just say right up front, my big thing I'm handling now is she died of cancer 2 years ago. She went from beautiful, healthy, vibrant, 9 months later, a skeleton. And it was very traumatic and huge loss. It took me really almost 2 years on that one to be free of the pain. Sometimes it will start to come and I nip it with the love. And I'll explain what happens. So I'm on my honeymoon with Bonnie, and that was we were married 34 years ago, so that's 36 years ago. And I get a call at my time of, honeymoon feelings and all that. And I get a call, my father was dead and I should come home for the funeral. What? I just seen my father, and he was perfectly healthy. Well, he had given a hitchhiker a ride and they had robbed him and left him in the trunk. And he died of heat asphyxiation in the trunk of the car. Oh my God, it was like a knife. It was so painful, so painful. And we immediately got to the airport in order to go to the funeral. And so much crying and so much emotion just pouring out of me, because it was a shock, particularly when it's a shock. But even if it's not a shock, it can be like Bonnie. Well, when Bonnie died, it was a shock too. But shocks are the most difficult because you weren't prepared for it. You weren't expecting it. It just happened. So it's a knife in my heart. Part of every loss that I've had in my life, and you'll see there's many, I grow from them. And I'm grateful for what I learned. And that's the healing. But it takes a while to get to that point. It's a journey you go on. And so my dad, I'm in the trunk of the car. I get there, see the car is still there. I wanted to get into the trunk to see what it was like to die in a trunk. It was just traumatic to think of that. And so I just wanted to get in. It can't be that terrible, kind of a thing. Or I just needed to feel what he felt. And my family's on the outside, 4 or 5 brothers and a sister and my mother. And I get into the trunk and I say, now put the roof down, but make sure you open it if I said to open it, right? And so I'm in the trunk and I can see he'd unscrewed with a screwdriver in the trunk this light, the back light, so get air. So he could get air, and he pulled it back. And he died of heat asphyxiation, which I found out wasn't a terrible way to die. Because you kind of it's kind of like a lobster doesn't know it's dying, or of the slow death.
Okay.
But you go in a kind of an unconscious state. But anyway, so I'm there and I pull out, I see where he pulled it back, and I pulled it back a little further. And without thinking, I put my hand through it. And then I pulled my hand back. I said to my brother said to me, John, see if you can reach around and push the button. And the trunk would have opened.
No.
So this is like, a Greek drama, a tragedy where the answer was there.
Yeah.
And for me, as I went through the healing process, I made that important, that always in my life, when there's a problem, to look at it from the other point of view. And that, in honor of my father, became the foundation of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which changed everybody's lives.
Yes.
Which is to look at things from another point of view. Also, when it comes to emotional intelligence, the importance of when we're trying to get out, we're sort of locked in our cave and we want to try to get out. Instead, we need to look in. We need to look in at our feelings. So many people, they have their pain, they want to put it out. And there's a part of our brain, which is, there's the instinctive part of the brain, then there's most of the brain is monkey DNA. And then there's this front part of the brain, which is human DNA. Now the monkey DNA, when it's in pain, it throws it out, tries to get out. This is what I feel, and you yell it out. And that's appropriate if the monkey is triggered, but it needs to be done in a way where it's not trying to change someone to elicit sympathy or to intimidate people to make them feel bad. Okay, if you use monkey energy to get what you want, you change your brain wiring. So sometimes people, because when they're grieving, it feels so good to express all those tears and to scream out, and wailing, which is natural, but it also produces dopamine. It says something bad has happened. Something terribly bad has happened. This is horrible thing that has happened. Well, that's a big dopamine stimulator.
Why would someone want to avoid that dopamine stimulator?
Well, you don't in the beginning.
Okay.
You need to wail, depending upon the attachment you had to this person. Because the monkey brain, see, we want to have the front part of the brain embrace the monkey brain like a child crying. Okay. But you don't let the child rule the roost.
Mhm.
Okay. And you have the awareness that this will pass, that this is a journey. So what is the journey? Freud explained this, and many people miss this. It's, he's known for other things, and I don't agree with everything Freud says, but this was brilliant. He said that when you attach to somebody, when you love someone over time, you attach, then your brain shifts gears. It literally changed the monkey brain. What it does, you walk around in life, you go, I need love. And now I found someone who loves me. So the brain goes, oh, it feels so good. I need you. I don't need love. I need your love. See, so the brain is now fooled into thinking you are the source of love, and I can't live without love. I will die without love. So that reassurance that love gives us and the comfort it gives us, we associate that with our partners. So our partners have a big influence on us, people that we're bonded with.
Mhm.
So now we're bonded with somebody, they're gone. The brain goes into panic and says, I can't have love anymore. I can't have love anymore. And that's why I suffer so greatly. I have so much pain. Now the next thing it says is, this is our brain talking to itself. It says, the reason I'm so unhappy that my wife died, or I'm so unhappy that my father died, I'm so unhappy this happened. Well, why am I so unhappy? Not because there's a need to integrate. The brain doesn't know anything about that. All I know is just having my experience is because I love my dad. Or when my wife died, because I love my wife. I'm missing my wife. So, and I have so much pain because I love her so much. And we have beautiful soulmate relationship, 34 years. I even talk about soulmates and then twin souls. Soulmates are the perfect person to reflect back to your own, as a man, your own female side. And I reflect back to her own male side. So by healing her, listening to her feelings, embracing her feelings, even when it's difficult, by learning to love that part of her, I'm loving that part of myself. So when you have sex with somebody, you bond in that way. That's the biggest bond you can have, is with sex. Although a child is a different kind of bond, but the sex one is even bigger, in my experience. So the bond is there once you connect sexually, so that whenever her female side is triggered, it triggers my own. That's resistance. So your partner will push your buttons more than anybody. And everybody knows that. Your kids can push your buttons a little bit. Your boss can, your friends can, the news can, but your partner pushes your buttons the most. And part of why couples lose sex drive is because they don't want their buttons pushed anymore. You
Oh,
don't put your finger back into the fire.
I
They
didn't
feel,
think of it that way. What do you do with that then?
well, that's another subject. Let's
Okay.
talk about grieving first, and
Okay,
then
okay, okay.
that's a really big one.
Okay.
Uh, so, so what happens when you have a need to integrate is, now I'm in pain, and the reason I'm in pain is because I love my partner so much, and I'm not happy. I'm not happy about anything. I'm so sad. I'm so sad. I'm in pain, and I have fear that this will never go away. My life will never be good again. It's a big no, 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 no. All the life force energy is being blocked now. That's why I'm suffering. But that's what the monkey brain is feeling. And the monkey brain is the attached part of the brain. So it needs to be heard. And another part of us needs to know this will pass, but it's only a little voice at this point. It's just, I can't bear it. I didn't want to live when Bonnie died. I didn't want to live anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. What's the purpose of my life? What do I need? And maybe I would have passed if I didn't have children and a responsibility to teach the world my message. I had no point in living there, because I couldn't be happy. Because if I was happy, now here's the twist. I'm in pain because I love her. So if I let go of pain and I'm not in pain, then what am I? Happy. But I'm in pain because I love her. So if I'm happy, that must mean I don't love her. So it's a real conflict. It was, after about a year of the grieving, I got to the place where I wasn't in pain all the time. And I could get back to more joy than I've ever felt in my life. More joy, because I went so deep in my healing. And I had more happiness, and I have more wisdom. I have more love for Bonnie. I have more love for myself and my life. And then the wave of pain would come. But so right around that time, where I still am a lot of pain sometimes, but my joy is greater at other times, because anytime you let go of pain, you free your soul to go to a new level. So I'm happier and still in pain, happier and then pain. Then I go and I decide, after a year, I'm going to go on this vacation I do with other authors. They're all my friends for 20 years. And We go on vacations together, 100 of us. So we take over the hotel, we do this thing. They all know me, you know, I'm John Gray, the biggest selling author in the group. So, and they're fun. Okay, so having said all that, I skipped 1 year. I didn't even want to go see them. You know, I just needed to go through my process. I wasn't ready to go out to the world yet. And that's another thing I'll talk about. But after a year, I knew I could be happy, and I wanted to go be with my friends and be happy and enjoy myself. But then I thought, oh, they won't understand. They'll think I don't love my wife if I'm so happy. People don't understand that because they don't know how to heal the heart. They don't know that you actually become happier when you heal a loss. Your heart gets bigger when you heal a loss. You're more in touch with your ability to feel. See, life is about numbing our feelings all the time, and to feel that much pain awakens your ability to feel both pain and pleasure and joy. So what I did there is I did a service for her where I shared the whole journey, and tears are flowing out of my face, and people can see the pain, although it wasn't as painful because I have so much healing and that's flowing through, and everybody can see it, and I had everybody talking about her. It was so wonderful. And then for the next 3 days with my friends, I could have so much fun, the life of the party. And nobody would judge me because they saw, well, he certainly loved his wife, even though now he's happy, he certainly loved her. And for a lot of people, that doesn't make sense. They think that, you know, it's a famous story of a Queen of England who lost her first husband or something and never had sex again in her life, never had another man in life, because that would be betraying their partner. How can you betray? How could you be with someone? How could you love again? No, you can love better again. Now, part of all this stems from, again, I know the healing journey because I went through it several times. First is when I'd been a monk for 9 years, very spiritual guy. And then I got into, my brother was bipolar, and meditation didn't help him. So I went to study psychology to help him. He eventually committed suicide. So I gave up my life as a monk to help him, and I failed. So there was that sense of failure, which brought up deep, deep feelings of I could have been a better brother. If only I'd been a better brother. Now, the reality is that I was the best brother to him, but my pain was that you just feel with attached to somebody, you feel responsible for them. I wish I could fix it. I couldn't solve it. It didn't help him. And he eventually committed suicide. But before that happened, I was studying psychology to help my brother. I became this counselor and teaching relationship courses, and I married my first wife. We were married for 2 years, and my heart was really big. I mean, I was really deeply in love with her. And we even taught a seminar together, which was called Making Love Work. Because I went from a homeless monk to making a decent living, teaching, being a counselor and teaching seminars with this woman. And after 2 years of being married to her, she fell in love with one of our course participants and was having an affair. And then she wanted to leave me to have children with him. So I was like a knife in my heart. Oh my God, you know, it was like a double whammy. I can't teach her how to make relationships work if my marriage failed. And I don't feel lovable because here's the woman I gave my heart to who's rejected me for another man. So it was like, bam. So that was the big shock of all. My wife dying is a bigger trauma for me, but that was the biggest shock. And then it was the first time I'd ever had to do deep grieving work. So here's a sweet story. So I taught at the time a healing technique, which is write out feelings of anger, sadness, fear, regret, what you wish and want, and feel your forgiveness and love. And then imagine the person writing out the words you need to hear. And then imagine how that would make you feel. Now that's in all my books, and I might repeat it in today's lesson, but that's a process of healing. But when it's a big trauma, the process means that I'm upset about what just happened, but I'm so upset because it ties into other upsets. So whenever you're writing out these feelings, your mind is open to how does this relate to a trauma in the past? And you do timeline therapy. You start going back to the past and past. So I was just doing that, but it was processing my feelings. But I remember walking out the door, we're going to separate, you know, because she wanted to be with the other guy. And I said, okay, we'll just separate, see what we feel after 7 days. I didn't know where to go, walking out the door. I can still remember that. What do I do now? Where do I go? And I picked up my phone and I called my mother in Texas. And I said, Mom, my wife and I are probably getting a divorce. And she said, oh, so sorry to hear that. And I said, I need you. And would you come to California? And she said, my bags are packed. I'm on my way to the airport to go to Dallas for your brother. I'll just change my ticket at the airport and I'll be there. And so now this is the big, so she's coming and I'm 32 at the time. And I'm at the airport waiting for my mother. And I'm furiously writing out these emotions. People thought, oh my God, tears are flowing out my face. I'm just devastated. My whole life has crashed. I can't make money. I can't teach what I taught. I'm a fraud. How could this be? My life is crushing down. And I'm fiercely writing these feelings. And then suddenly a memory comes up. And the memory is when I was a little boy, around 6 years old. My family traveled from Texas to California. And we were all excited about going to Disneyland. And my brothers, who were all jealous of me because I seemed to be closer to mom, they said, oh, Disneyland. Aunt Aini lives next door to Disneyland. And because my mother said, who wants to go to Aunt Aini's house and visit our cousins? I didn't know these people. They're strangers to me, but I thought everybody would come because they live near Disneyland. So I said, I'll go. And my mother, she realized that I slept in her bed every night, which isn't unusual for a 6-year-old. Yeah. And I'd get my own bed, but wake up and go into her bed every night. So she thought maybe it's time for him to take his time. So she said, okay. So I went off in this car with these strangers around me to Aunt Aini's house. And for 7 days, I thought I would never get back to my family. I thought I was never going to get home. Nobody came and got me. Now, of course they would come get me, but there was no contact. I wasn't with my parents. We didn't go to Disneyland. These kids were really mean. I felt in a strange world. It was very traumatic for me, but I just kept quiet and smiled. Like maybe they'll take me home if I'm a good little boy. Until finally on the 7th day, I remember I'm not going to take this anymore and I'm going to go home. And so I walked down that street and I get down, I'm going to get back. And I furiously, the strength inside of me rose up. I'm going to go home. And I got to the end of the block. It seemed like so long. I've been there now. It's just a block, but it seemed like this long walk. I'm going to get home. And then the road goes to the right and it goes to the left and it curves up to the right. I had to make a decision. And in that moment, I realized I don't know how to get home. Right. Wow. That was my trauma at that moment. I don't know how to get home. And so my decision in that moment was, okay, I'll just be a good little boy and maybe they'll bring me home. So I went back and I was crying and for the first time. And Aunt Aini said, you need your mother. And as soon as she said that, she said, I went into hysterics, complete hysterics. And she got in the car and brought me home to my mother right away. You need to spend special time with this child. All I could remember prior to this breakup in present time was that day when I went back. All I remembered was walking on the beach with my mother and feeling very, very little. And the world was so big. It was like I'd been in a childhood kind of a dreamland, but I was abruptly woken up. And I remember thinking, all these people, there's so many people. Who are they? What are they? But anyway, that was what I remembered that day. And suddenly I'm at the airport and I'm writing up my feelings and that memory comes up of the trauma. And now I can furiously writing my letter to my mother and my father for ignoring me, for leaving me. And my anger went to them and my sadness and hurt, my fears that, don't you love me? Don't you care about me? Won't you come get me? Do I have to live with these people forever? This is horrible. I can't believe it. Am I that bad of a little boy? You don't love me? So I'm writing out all these emotions in the airport. And then I get back to, I wish you would come get me. And I get in touch with what you wish and want. Then you imagine the person talking to you. My mother saying, oh, Johnny, please forgive me. I love you. It was our mistake. So many kids around. We thought you were having a good time. So we didn't want to bother anything. It was totally about my problem, not yours. And I'm going to do something special as a result. So that's kind of like what I would need to hear as a child. Mm-hmm. And then how would that make me feel? And then I would express what makes me feel safe and heard and I can be loved. So that's a healing unit. So I'm doing that at the airport and I'm finishing up and all these tears I'm back to feeling good again for a little while because I released all this pain. And my mother comes off the plane right at that time. I said, hi, Mom. And I give her a hug. She says, hi, John. And then I said, Mom, how long can you be here? And she says, 7 days. And then I said, well, where should we go? And she said, well, let's go to my sister's house, Aunt Aini. So talk about God in heaven, for me, it was just like amazing. And it was a hard time for me, but I tell you, I couldn't sleep at night. I was shaky. And she stayed with me. She stayed up with me at night, and she taught me piano. She next to me, showed me a little piano because she never taught me as a child, and she used to play piano until she had children. And we went to Disneyland, and we ate junk food like we would have done back then. And literally, she held my hand even though I was 32 years old. I just let myself role play being that kid to a great extent. It was so healing, but it took time. I'm still like shaking. What am I going to do in my life? And she wasn't giving me answers. She was just being loving. And at the 7th day, and she's about to go back, I was feeling a lot lighter then, but still it's traumatic. One of my clients was a famous comedian who had cancer and was dying, and he did a big party with other celebrities to say goodbye. Andy Kaufman was his name, Saturday Night Live guy.
Yeah.
And so he invited me to the party, and he introduced me to all his celeb friends. This is my therapist, like I'm this great guy. And my mother came along as well. And I wasn't nervous around the celebrities. Normally I feel like littler than these famous people. I just felt equal. And then I looked over at my mother while I was standing there, and I realized I'm taller than my mother. But see, a part of me was always frozen at that little 6-year-old level. Wow. That's what happens when we have traumas, is we get frozen at certain places. A certain part of our aliveness gets frozen. And that's why when you have a shock and you know how to heal it and link it back to a trauma in the past, any traumas have a chance to come forth into the consciousness if you're aware of how to do this. So that came out. And now for the next 6 months, I went through waves of these feelings and going back to that childhood experience for about 6 months. And after that time, I've never experienced anxiety in my life. Never. Now, prior to that time, every time before giving a lecture in front of an audience, my knees shake, my body would shake. I had a lot of anxiety and fear. As a matter of fact, the first time I gave a talk, I fainted. Wow. Because literally my knees started shaking and I dropped to the ground, and people thought, oh my God.
Right.
And what's interesting is meditation didn't fix that. Okay. It was processing my emotions that fixed that. Meditation gave me enough self-awareness to be able to look inside and identify emotions if I was taught how to do that, and then even link it to my deep trauma of childhood. So that's an example of the benefit of healing. And then that was 6 months later, I had no anxieties. And the journey was, imagine my situation. I'd already gotten to the point where I taught six different cities in the country, seminars for a weekend of 100 people, all paying $300 each, that my wife and I would go and teach. And suddenly we're not going to go. We're the happy married couple. She wasn't going to go. And I said, well, I got to have money to live on. I can't cancel these things. And also we promised to do it. So I faced my big fear. I stood in front of those people. And I remember I was so shaky. I was like a little boy, actually. I held the hand of my assistant as I'm getting close to the stage. I'm going to go out to the lions basically and say, hey, you came here for Making Love Work, and my wife and I were probably getting a divorce. Yeah. What a fear. So I remember that moment. And I stood in front of the audience. I said, well, my wife's not here because we're probably getting a divorce. And I know this is Making Love Work. So you must have a lot of feelings coming up and doubts and worries. And if anybody wants your money back, you can have it. If you want to ask me any questions, I'm always an open book. And so, raise your hand, ask questions, and certainly you can have a full refund if you don't want to be here. So a man raised his hand and he said, well, we came here to make our marriage better. And if your marriage is failing, why should we listen to you? And I said, I understand your feelings completely. Yeah. And my answer to that is, who told you about this seminar? And he said, my friends, and they were there, so-and-so and so-and-so. And what did they say? And they said, well, this changed their life. This made their life so much better. And I said, well, if you can't trust me, you can trust them, because I know how to teach this seminar. So it was very sweet. And I said, any other question? Nobody asked any more questions. Nobody wanted their money back. It was like I faced the biggest fear you could imagine, and it worked out okay. And so every city after that, I just told that little story, and everybody was fine. It was shocking to me. It was disbelief. I thought everybody would just leave and be upset at me and go, and it didn't happen that way. So there's a part of where we have to face our fears and move through them, but there's also a part of it where we have to take time to listen to our feelings and heal them. So those are two aspects of healing the heart. So then just another benefit is two months later, after I did all those tours, and it was about 6-7 months, most of the pain was gone. And then what I think about what happened was gratitude for the time that we had together, feeling love for her, forgiveness for her, and knowing that we just weren't right for each other. So there was a lot of healing that went on in my heart. And then I just happened to be traveling up north of California, and Bonnie, my wife Bonnie, I tried to marry her before this other woman I did marry. Bonnie wouldn't marry me. She
Why
said, "You're not
not?
ready." She said, "You're not ready to get married." Because when I met her, I just finished being a monk. I didn't have she had 2 little children from a previous marriage. I didn't have an income. I had a car. We dated for 2 years, but she wouldn't marry me because she said, "You need to, be more independent." And because my first date with my wife, Bonnie, this is 2 years before I married Barbara, my first wife.
Mhm.
I had a car that was so broken down, it wouldn't start. It had to be on a hill, and I had to roll it down the hill and flip the gear and put it in the first and start it that way. That was our first date. So,
Nice.
but anyway, 2 years passed, and with Bonnie and Barbara kept wanting to. Barbara's this woman who pursued me, my first wife. She really wanted me. So finally, I just sort of went with Barbara, and Bonnie said, "I don't think you're ready to be married." And I was also exploring open relationships. And she said, "You're not really ready to settle down." I said, "I'll settle down now. I want to marry you." And she said, "I don't think you're ready." And she was right. I had to go through some healing before I was ready to marry her. So I went through this 2-year marriage with this other woman. 9 months actually healing my heart. Then I just happened to be driving by Santa Cruz saying, "I'm going to drive." I said, "I just want to come be with you." Long story short, a month later, I married Bonnie.
Oh.
It was so sweet. She's my soulmate. And she was my soulmate to start with, but I just wasn't ready. And had to go through some learning experiences, and so grateful for all the learning experiences I had in my first marriage. And I can't say right afterwards, I was like, glad this happened. I was devastated. But now, oh my gosh, so many reasons to be glad it happened, because I wouldn't have been married to Bonnie for my life. And I couldn't have healed my heart the way I did. And then married Bonnie. And then my father died in the trunk. And then that was another grieving process. Maybe a good 9 months before the pain went away. So I thought it was like a 9-month process. And then, my other things would happen. But now with Bonnie dying, 9 months of her going down and then dying, it's been 2 years. I'd say it took me 2 years to get to where the pain is just warm feeling of love. And I can go to tears very quickly. I wish she was with me. I wish she could see this. I wish our children had her, so forth. But there's not any pain. See, that's the whole thing. And to make that shift, you have to process emotion. You have to constantly remind the mind it's temporary. Because, when I'm angry, it happened. I was angry with the doctors. I was angry with the situation. I was angry with myself, and I was sad and disappointed. I couldn't figure out what my fear was, because I'm like this fearless guy. But then I realized finally, because you have to get through all these layers of emotion to fully go through a gestalt and let it go. It's like, here's this phone. If you just look at one side of it, you'll never see the whole truth. You got to look at this side and this side and this side and this side. When the mind can look at pain from all these different directions, it will let it go. Because pain is believing something that's not true. Pain is believing something not true. So when I'm in pain about my wife, the monkey brain is believing I'll never have love again. And the monkey brain is also saying, I'm going to be in pain forever. Forever. I mean, this is never going to go away. There's no fix to this. I can't get her back. And that finally got to clear articulation of my fears. I'm afraid I'll never be happy again. I'll be in this life. My life will be empty. I'll never have love again. I can have girlfriends. I can get married again, but I'll never have that. And that's true. I'll never have that, but I can have more. So you got to get into, I can have more, because all pain comes from, I cannot have what I need. I can't have what I need. It's a belief. We say to ourselves, well, she's gone, so you'll never have love again. And you'll never get the love that you need. And that's a lie. And it just takes time to get it. But it's kind of like, you have a job, you can save money in your income and retire. It's nothing happens instantly. It's a journey. It's a process that we have to go through. And always, when you look back at the losses, is to be able to see that you glean something from it. You're not glad that it happens. And part of why I really feel I want to write another book on this healing, and I'm really happy to do this interview as well. But there was something that really inspired me, because I don't always have all the knowledge. And back when I wrote other books on healing, which I can mention, but is when I was down doing this grieving conference, another doctor approached me, and he was talking about grieving. He said they They did MRI scans of grieving parents who lost a child. And when they grieve, the brain lights up as if they just took cocaine.
Tell us more about that.
That's the key thing, is grieving is potentially addictive. If you stay in the pain, and if every time you feel the pain, you need to come back to feeling the love and feeling good. It's a wave. So you have to condition yourself. The pain brings you to greater love. The pain gives you greater acceptance. The pain opens up the door to receive more love. And then you actually have to receive more love. Okay, there's a rhythm. Like
internal source or external source?
Both. See, hearing your feelings is loving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's being present with yourself. I hear you, speak to me. And wailing has, back when I was living in India and Tibet, Nepal and Tibet, they had these places where they burn dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a ritual. And the husband has died, the mother will throw herself into the fire.
Wow.
Oh, they're totally attached. I mean, this is your life for, and so now they don't actually throw themselves in the fire. They have the feelings of throwing themselves into the fire, and they try to throw themselves into the fire, but the family holds them back.
Mm-hmm.
But here's someone completely free. It's just they're being held back. So the emotions have a chance to be felt and heard, depending upon how deep your bond is.
So does somebody have to understand the ritual of this in order to be able to go through it successfully, or
Yes.
are there, okay?
You can't get through it without knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's two ways people will do it. One is they'll wail, and oh my God, I would wail. For me, a little different for men than women, but I didn't want anybody in the house. That way I felt free to wail without somebody saying, you shouldn't be upset. Don't be. See, that's what people do to you when you break into tears. There. You should. It's okay. She'll be happy. You should find love again. She's in a better place. And not that those words aren't nice at the right time, but there's also the same words at the wrong time don't help at all.
So how do we hold space for others when they are going through their grieving process?
You test it out. First of all, you do nothing to try to make them feel better.
Okay.
You talk about the person, and we want to come back to the grieving process, but it's a quick answer to that. Because I even when I'm going through it, I'm going to write a book on this. So I was taking notes. Actually, I kept letters of people, and I know which ones evoke the healing response, and ones that, when somebody says, I heard your wife died, my condolences. It's really, particularly in the beginning of the wailing and the wounding, it's awful. Don't tell me that. Condolences is the most detached, unemotional, empathetic phrase ever, but nobody knows what to do.
Yes.
And so it would be first of all, I don't talk about it to people that don't know her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you just don't share it, because what are they going to say? Oh, my condolences. It's like they can relate. They're not relating at all.
Mm-hmm.
But what you can do is, somebody says, Bonnie died. So how are you feeling? You could say, or you could just be there if I'm talking about it. I said, yeah, Bonnie's passed on. It was really awful. And then you just create a space for them to keep talking. If they don't keep talking, then you basically say something nice about Bonnie. You just say, Bonnie was so sweet. I remember one time I said this and she did that. That's the most powerful thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Is give me another reason to cry and miss her. I just think back to all these, the letters is people comforting me saying, she's in heaven now, or she wants you to move on in your life. She doesn't want to see you suffer. That did nothing.
But to share a fond memory of her,
Yes,
and
yes.
how she affected them, that
Yes.
helped your healing.
Massively.
Okay.
And let me see her.
Yeah.
You see, she's gone. I can't see her.
Yeah.
But someone just saw her. They have a fresh, clean memory of her, and they share it with me. And I got to see a part of her that I never got to see.
Oh my gosh.
She's here with me.
Yeah.
So many people loved her. And so, our service was having people come and just share things they like about Bonnie, something she did for her. And all I can do is just cry and cry. And that is the most healing. So that's just a thing people need to know, is how to support people in that place. Another thing is you can do this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Is, I just recently lost my wife, or I recently lost my husband, or I recently lost my father. May I share a little bit about that? And I say, yes, as long as it's short, because really it needs to be about me.
Yes.
I'm in pain here. It doesn't, you didn't walk up to me in all this pain, but to share a little bit about how they felt. I know my mother, she was, just to say she was going, and I miss her, short. The problem is some people who will do that will tell me a lesson they learned from it to teach me at that moment.
Mm.
And if you come to me as a counselor, I can do that because you've hired me to give you a lesson about it. But even then I wouldn't jump into it. Because I remember the guy who fixes my fence, he said, "Might I tell you a story about my mother or something?" And it just went on and on and on. It was kind of like, now I'm going into him and I've lost me. And I need to be in touch with what I feel at that time. Bless his heart. I just was always looking at what really works here. And what really works is just to bring that person back into the room, your experience of them in a loving. And that's really, I remember even when I was a monk, I asked, my grandfather died, and I asked my teacher at that time, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? He said, old Indian tradition is just say good things about him. Remember the good times. Remember him. And that brings up the feelings by talking about the good things and sharing the good things. So those going through waves of the feeling. Now, where it gets addictive is where you can't come back to forgiveness. See, these parents weren't able to come back to forgiveness. They were beating themselves up. They didn't know how. When you beat yourself up, that causes depression. And that's sort of a standard psychological insight, that depression is anger turned back at yourself that you're not willing to express outwards.
Just on this topic or on others?
All topics.
Okay.
Anytime somebody's depressed, there's depressed, anxiety, unhappiness, all that stuff is one of the four emotions is repressed. That's how I look at it. But the general thing is depression is anger at yourself. I would say an anger at yourself is only there because you're not embracing your anger outwards. See, the monkey brain is always a victim of somebody else. Mm-hmm. When the monkey brain thinks it's a victim of me, I'm a bad person, I'm no good. The monkey brain is basically afraid to put it out. It's like a child being angry with a parent. You just can't be angry with a parent. They throw you away. So anger at yourself, if it's felt, the appropriate feeling of that is guilt. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I feel guilty. I should have done this. I shouldn't have done that. I feel ashamed. I was bad, whatever. And that's what that anger, what neutralizes, switches the anger at yourself into actually, I feel ashamed. And feeling that, but sometimes you can't actually just feel that shame or that guilt and release it because you haven't yet embraced the anger. Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, that's why it's anger towards yourself. It needs to go out. And this happens to women a lot because women don't have a lot of permission to express anger. Some men have a lot of permission to express anger, so they feel no guilt. Donald Trump never says he's sorry for anything, and he's angry at everybody.
Check.
You can see that. Okay. That's just, I'm not being on either party. I mean, he's a perfect example of somebody who's like, never says he's sorry for anything, and never is accountable. Like, I should have done that differently. I feel so bad about that. No, it's everybody else's fault. We're going to blame this person, blame this, this is not the virus. This is the Chinese virus, and this is childish behavior where you're afraid of getting in trouble if you reveal what you feel or what you did. So you always have to blame it on someone else.
But to be fair, if he was concerned about how he was presenting himself, he would change that way he's showing up. So he's not concerned. He's okay with just being angry at everyone.
He's a lost soul. And I have to tell you, my experience, and books are written about this, that most politicians, particularly presidents, are sociopaths. To get to that job, to be able to stand up to massive criticism, basically presidents have a lot of people that hate them. Every time, half the country votes against them. We only win by a couple of points margin. Yeah. So in order to have that much denial of taking things personally, it takes a certain type to do that. And so you get a lot of really dysfunctional people running for, they may start out, but they become that, to have to protect themselves from all the negativity. So if you see, I'm always in a non-judgmental place. I have compassion for him. I know his childhood. I know his parents. I know his behaviors, and I see his relationship zero. I see the woman that gave him the virus. That's his girlfriend. I mean, how obvious is it? It just, she's with him all the time.
Right.
So, anyway, I mean, politics is lies, lies, lies. Nobody can defute that. All politicians lie, and all media is only telling you the partial truth.
Yes.
The partial truth is the world we live in, and not being able to grieve properly is partial truth.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just going to focus on my pain and not the happiness and joy in my heart.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to focus on just the pain of what happened, as opposed to realizing this is triggering deeper attachment issues in my past. And that takes some training to get to if you fully heal. Yeah. And here I was, this guy who's, overcome anxiety, no depression, endless energy, a great sex life for 34 years. I flow, I created success. I work hard at all this stuff I write in my books. But then my wife knocked me over when she died. I mean, I wanted to die. I was broken. I couldn't give a talk for a year. And so the journey was, you take where you are, but you learn how to process. You always go from the feeling the pain. What are the emotions that go with the pain? And write them out or share them. And I call that processing. Mm-hmm. And write it out and share it with somebody who's not going to talk and tell you don't feel that way, who's not going to try to talk you out of it, but just understand your pain. And there's no healing that happens. If the healing that happens is to the extent that somebody else has felt pain. See, if I have pain and you felt my pain to the intensity of it, and maybe not the same reason for it, but the intensity of the pain, then just you feeling my pain will heal it, one layer of it. If you share your pain with me and I have a well of deep pain that I can relate to, it will heal. And that's what a real healer is. That's why some therapists are just massively effective and others have no effect at all. And people are just addicted to their problem and they go back again and again to keep complaining. So complaining is when you share pain without feeling it. Okay. And so you just stay in it. You just keep talking about the story. Mm-hmm. The purpose of telling the story is to get in touch with what that story feels inside, what emotions it evokes inside, and then exploring the emotions. That's your key. That's the only way you let go of pain is to feel the negative emotions and what thought is creating that pain. So when I have the thought, when I identify that, okay, I'm angry with the doctors, I'm angry they wouldn't do this treatment on her, I'm angry at the system that wouldn't allow her to do this treatment, we could have saved her. All they had to do is a 3-minute surgery and suck the tumor out. The tumor was blocking her digestion, so she couldn't eat. And we were doing things that would help the body reduce the tumor if she could eat. But the tumor had blocked the digestive process, so she couldn't eat. And so she starved to death, basically. And all they have to do is 2-minute surgery. That's all it is. You suck the tumor out, done. They wouldn't do it. They had all these requirements you had to do. You had to do 6 weeks of chemotherapy, and which would have killed her because she was already quite sick. And the prognosis for the kind of people are 2% survive when it's her age in that situation. It was very aggressive cancer, and she had, although all the bad markers, she had these broken BRCA genes, everything you hear in the news. But she could have been saved if we just sucked that tumor out and given her a chance to let the food in her digestive system. They wouldn't do it. I was so angry with them, just so mad. No, I let it go. But, the way you let go of anger is you ultimately realize it couldn't have been anything different.
Yes.
It couldn't be. Those people couldn't have done anything different based on their training, based upon the way this world is and blah, blah, blah. It couldn't have been different. And then you let it go because, when you hold on to negativity, you're giving that person that you're mad at free rent in your brain. Oprah used that quote. You're giving them free rent in your brain to torment you over and over and over. You need to run your brain. So ultimately, it's coming back to this acceptance is you're no longer trying to change the past, even though after 1 year, I remember going on a vacation with my kids to Hawaii and going through my waves there. And one day it was just, I want to turn back time. I'm just so angry. I was so furious And these things that would come out of me were like song lyrics. Okay. It's like, the song Turn Back Time. I want to turn,
Yes.
it was so real. I want to just rip this world apart and go back, and that was just anger. You have to let yourself have these feelings inside. They have to have permission. And part of the wailing thing in the beginning was I was at such a deeper level of my monkey brain, because, I'm cool, calm, collected. I don't get upset with anybody hardly. In my marriage, the last 10 years, we never fought or anything, but we weren't like these couples who suppressed their feelings. We had passionate sex. I mean, the best sex that I could imagine, which meant we're still in touch with our feelings, but we have harmony. I call that a twin soul relationship, is where you have harmony and sex. A lot of people are twin souls because they're like good friends and they stopped having sex a long time ago.
Okay.
But a soulmate relationship is where you're looking, you end up pushing each other's buttons all the time, but you learn how to manage your buttons and grow from that. So how many times Bonnie could upset me, but I would go to my cave, process my feelings, and come back with more love, and I would grow each time. And that's how I wrote all these books.
Yes.
I got 28 books, all based
Absolutely.
on my marriage. It's just like, I had to understand myself. Why do I have these emotions inside? What's going on inside? What happened here? And so that's a learning journey. And so I'll share in my experience of the biggest crisis, calamity in my entire life was my wife's death. And now 2 years later, I have a girlfriend, and I have
Yes.
I have the most unbelievable sex.
Yes.
And people say, well, she says, would you love me more? I said, wait, she lost her father. I say, well, you always love the people in your past. It doesn't mean I love you any less to love her more. And there's no way you can, this is another song, there's no way you can make an old friend. Okay. That means an old friend is somebody who's been there in your life 40 years, 30 years. Nothing replaces that. It takes 30 years to become an old friend.
Okay.
But I can have new and great love. Just like when I fell in love with Bonnie, I can have that kind of love, but more now. Oh, I have such wisdom, so much wisdom from, because see, during those first year and a half, many sleepless nights. And during those sleepless nights, I would remember every kind of argument, every kind of thing. I wasn't perfect.
Okay.
And I remember that, and I feel, oh, if only I'd done that. Because that's what you do, is you want to, like with my little brother, I went back to childhood. I could have been a better brother. Maybe this wouldn't have happened. I could have been a better husband. Maybe she wouldn't have been stressed, whatever, so you have to go, what if? So I go to what if, and again, I would go, how could I have done that differently? And then I feel forgiveness for myself, and I look at her side of it too. And a little bit, you tend not to do that much when you're grieving.
Yeah.
When you're grieving, you put your partner on a pedestal. Okay. That's the thing we have to realize because ultimately, to a great extent, we're always taking each other for granted. Okay. Let me give you an example outside of relationships. I'm a writer, and, I write these books, and I'm writing them, and I write fast. Okay. It takes a month for every book. Okay. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I do 18 hours a day, but I teach these ideas, I develop in my head, and then I just sit down, and my wife has to endure a month of me not being emotionally available to her. And that's a shock to her. So she suffered through these books. So I couldn't acknowledge that. And part of my regret is I think I could have done it differently. And many times I did learn over the years to do it differently, but then I think now, I really have learned other things, understanding her even better. But the point of it is, when I'm writing these books, occasionally, this is back when computers would crash, and you lose stuff. You didn't have backup or whatever.
Yes.
And I'd be struggling on some chapter and struggling and not liking what I'm writing. It doesn't sound good. It's not right. I got to change it. And then it would crash. And then I couldn't recover it. And then suddenly my brain shifts. Oh my God, that was the best writing I ever did. It was literally, the brain goes into a whole nother thing. When we lose something, we appreciate it more. That's just that's a reality of life, because to a great extent, we take things for granted. We're not living our full potential to be able to appreciate and love life. Like, for example, right now, this is part of the healing from Bonnie. And it's one of her beautiful qualities is that she loved nature. We had a ranch with redwood trees. We had 80 redwood trees. They're over 500 years old. Just magnificent trees. And she used to love to go up there. And we have a house with big redwood trees around it. And she loved it. She loved being in the forest. I liked it. It looked nice to me, but I'm busy doing my work, and it was, it's a beautiful place. But now I walk and the trees suddenly have become 10 times bigger. Okay, they're 10 in my perception. They're huge. And I feel in wonder. I feel like I'm on an LSD trip now, although I'm not, I'm regular doing my life, and I go for these walks in nature, and I'm in awe of their beauty. That's the world she lived in.
Yeah.
See, I'm able to bring why I was drawn to her, to find that ability within myself and not take it for granted. And because I lost her and I healed and I processed, all those good qualities of her come into me. I'm so much more empathetic and compassionate and connected to nature, not as much as her. I'm still not an environmentalist as much as her. One of the things I did was, after she died, I think about a year later, I bought a Bentley, which is
Nice.
a gas guzzler. She would never approve. So now I'm doing things that I could do without my wife going, how could you drive a gas guzzler? I said, but I bought a Tesla. So I mostly drive my Tesla to balance it off. I probably should get a license plate on my Bentley and say, my other car is a Tesla.
It'll be redeeming it. Absolutely.
So actually, I'm a hybrid driver. But, it's a convertible. Oh, I'm just happier than I've ever been in my life when I'm not grieving. That's the gift of going so deep. Because like with my first wife, when I was grieving that, all the anxieties went away and my ability to love increased, because I accessed a 6-year-old boy. They've been frozen. Every one of us, when we were 6 years old or 3 years old or 18 years old, whatever the traumas are, we were so much more alive then. We had so much more joy. We had so much more innocence. We had so much more appreciation. Take a little child and show them something and they're like amazed by it. You see, we get, oh, I've seen it before, I've done it before, whatever. We just push down that childlike part of us instead of bringing it back up. And the most childlike part of us that we can bring up is the part of us that's the monkey brain. So you want to give yourself permission to go there, but not like a child who could just cry and cry and cry. You have to be the parent who says, let me help you understand why you're crying. So emotional healing, this is emotional intelligence point 3.0. Okay, this goes beyond what the books all say, is understanding when you have emotions, it's like a child. So I'm driving the car with my daughter, Lauren, and she sees other children eating ice cream at the ice cream shop. And she's eaten there before. We've had ice cream. We just don't go all the time because that's not good for you. But it's a hot day. She sees them and she had ice cream yesterday. So I say to her, she says, oh, Daddy, let's have ice cream. Other kids are having ice cream. I said, no, we can't have ice cream today. Why can't we have ice cream today? I said, sweetie, we don't have ice cream every day. It's not good for your health. We do it occasionally. No, I want my ice cream. I can't believe you do that. And she's getting all angry because she has permission to be angry at me. And then I said, now, sweetie, I know you're angry, and you're angry because those kids are getting ice cream and you're not getting ice cream. And that doesn't feel fair. And she calms down instantly and she says, yes. And then I say, but you're not getting it. Now, what's interesting is she calmed down just because she discovered that I actually understood why she felt that way.
Yeah.
See, that's part of our upsets all the time, is that we feel someone doesn't understand. I mean, aren't you the parent that gave me ice cream yesterday and wanted to make me happy? Why aren't you giving it to me today?
Yeah.
So I had to validate her. I know she didn't say I'm angry. She just was angry. Children can't self-reflect. Okay, we can do it. Mm-hmm. It takes a while for that part of the brain to develop. They're little monkeys. Monkey see, monkey do. That's how they learn everything. And when we're grieving, we're little monkeys and we try to wake up this part of the brain. So I say to her, now I understand you're angry and you're very angry because it doesn't seem fair. They get it. And why are you not getting it? And she said, and you would be so happy if you got that ice cream. And if you don't get it, you're going to be very unhappy. She says, yes. Now she thinks, because she gets calm instantly. And I said, but we're not going to get any ice cream. What? And now she starts to go into tears. What? Her eyes turn red, crying. I'm not going to get ice cream. You understand that I want ice cream and you're not going to give it to me? That's even worse. And now she's going to cry. So this is only 1 minute each. Okay. And then she started crying and crying, sweetie. And I say, sweetie, I know you're so disappointed. You see, you're giving them a lesson based on the experience. You're so disappointed because other children get it. You think you should get it. And sometimes we do get it, but today you're not going to get it. And it must make you so sad. And that's why you're crying. She goes, yeah, that's why I'm crying. That's why I'm crying. I said, Yeah, I understand. And then
But you're still not getting it.
you're still not getting it. And then she says, it's not fair. It's not fair. And then I said, sweetie, I know you're upset. You're afraid. You're afraid you're never going to get it. And she says, yes, when am I going to get it? You're not going to give it to me today. I'll never get it. I said, sweetie, next Sunday, we're going to have a party at the house. I'm sure we're going to have ice cream. No, 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 no. I won't get my ice cream. I'll never get ice cream again. I'll never have. See, children do that. We do that when our spouses die. I'll never be happy again. It's just more dramatic than, of course, losing ice cream. I don't want to minimize that, but this is a monkey inside who's never going to get what they need.
Yes.
This is death. This is horrible. And you need to have a parent around to assure them you'll get it on Sunday. No, 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 I'm not going to get it on Sunday. And then you say, I know you're afraid that you're never going to get it. You're afraid that other people get it and you don't get it. But good fortune is that I'm your daddy and I promise you'll get ice cream on Sunday. So now I've heard her. When children, when their emotions are heard, they will hear what you say. Otherwise, they don't hear it. You can say, oh, we'll get it later. No, 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 no. Basically, I hear you and I want you to know on Sunday, we're going to have ice cream. And she said, how much? I said, well, since it seems so unfair, you're going to get even more. What flavor would you like? And she said, well, I like a vanilla. We want to go to the yogurt shop and have sprinkles on top. I said, okay, we're going to the yogurt shop and we're getting sprinkles on top. And then she's smiling again. Children will go through it just like that. Most children will just go through it and they have no awareness. They didn't gain any intelligence. And unfortunately today, most parents give in and give them ice cream. Mm-hmm. So that child never learns that I can be upset because I don't have something. Mm-hmm. I can process my emotions and be happy and still not get what I want. See, that's called delayed gratification. I don't have to have it now. Every time your child throws a tantrum and you give them what they're wanting, you're training them to not have delayed gratification. Now add to that all the video games that we're playing and all of that. Our brains have been changed to become excessively demanding, excessively upset. We get so upset about the littlest things. And as opposed to, why be so upset about that? We overreact. But when you have a need integrate, remember that's what Freud said, when you bond with somebody, that's a death. They die and now you'll never get what you need. And people telling you, it's going to be okay, it's going to be all right. A little bit of that, that's part of the context that we're in a journey here. And with the journey, eventually you can heal that hurt. But nobody wants a solution right when they're beginning of it. They want you to go right into, this is so painful. It must be so painful. And Bonnie was so beautiful and she cared for me. I remember when people, all the things Bonnie did for people that I didn't even know. Okay, so that is so sweet. It just brings up, but in the beginning, it makes you in touch with your pain. Okay, and people don't want to feel their pain. Mm-hmm. But when you learn to process pain is, you feel the pain, you now will bring it back to the love, because pain is just covering up the love, and you feel more love and more love through that journey. Now, where it becomes addictive is where you just feel the pain and you don't identify actually you suffer. Just, you're pain, but you're resisting the pain. You're holding on to it instead of letting it go. Feeling emotions is the journey of letting go of pain. If you just, like when she went through those 4 emotions, or 3 emotions in the case of a child, anger, sadness, fear, then they can more easily let go. Just let it go, move on. Now we're moving on to the next thing. But if you, let's say you're a woman and anger is not okay with you, and you've never learned how to feel anger, you're just a good person and you're just trying to be loving all the time, you tend to have more fears than most people, because you can't release your pain until you at least look at least 3 of those emotions, if not 4, if you're an adult. You stay stuck in fear. Many men are stuck in anger. Now I'll give you an example of that. Let's say I said to Donald Trump, who's angry and blaming, I say, Donald, actually you're afraid. I'm not afraid of anything. He doesn't know he's afraid. He's afraid of losing the election. He's afraid this whole COVID thing's making his ratings going down. He's looking at his ratings every day because he's terrified of not being reelected. He's terrified of people not liking him.
So,
But if I said to him, Donald, what are you afraid of? I'm not afraid of anything.
uh-huh,
You see, I'm not guilty about anything.
yeah.
Because he can express anger, but he can't go to the deeper levels. He
So
would let go of his anger.
do you think these methods are applicable in every form of loss, grieving, losing a job, losing one's identity in losing the job, losing?
Every
That's what I
upset
hear.
you have,
Yeah.
anything that upsets you, you want to bring it back to, okay, every stress is a combination of various emotions inside, and you hold on to the stress to the extent that you don't experience the complete truth. Part of the stress on our country right now is the partial truth. If you look at Fox, you see a piece of this truth. There's truth there, but it's a piece, omission of anything that makes the president look bad. Let's look at what theoretically makes him look good. And then I watched the MSNBC and CNN, omission of anything good. It's like they would die if they had to say something good about the president. We just can't say that. We can't celebrate any wins. And if they were to report it, it would just be with a little, and by the way, he did this, as opposed to making a big deal out of it. It's partial truth.
Yes.
When you live in a world of partial truth, you can't resolve, you can't connect. And CNN tries to, but it really is, it's way more on one side of it. So the partial truth is the narrative that's being given to people, and it splits us. And so there's a huge divide in this country. It's a huge divide. Every couple that has stress, there's a huge divide. She has her narrative, he has his narrative, and they can't coexist together until I can get them separately to process their emotions, to come back to letting go of the anger, of the hurt, of the fear, and realizing that's all monkey brain. Now, there's what's called moderate stress, which is adrenaline, and then there's high stress, which is cortisol. When you're processing adrenaline, the way that's moderate stress, the emotions that you feel, instead of anger, it's frustration. Instead of sadness, it's going to be disappointment. You see, they're a little bit more of the head here. I'm disappointed. I thought so-and-so was going to show up. They didn't. And sometimes feeling disappointment brings you back to, you feel sad. Why you feel sad is you're disappointed. Why you become angry is because you're frustrated. Mm-hmm. See, you can't be angry unless you're frustrated. But often when you're frustrated, you go into, it's not my fault. And so you go to anger. You're a victim. Mm-hmm. If you're disappointed and you feel powerless, you're going to go into sadness. You could be concerned. That's a nice form of worry, but it's a healthy form. I'm concerned. And if you feel powerless and you're concerned, now you're afraid. And if you feel embarrassed, oh my God, I did something embarrassing. That's always, if you feel powerless, oh my gosh, then I'm so embarrassed that I feel terrible, I'm bad. You feel guilt. So the monkey brain is always anger, sadness, fear, and guilt. Okay. And the primitive brain, now this is the instinctive brain, is pure fight or flight. That's you're scared, not just afraid of what could happen, not happen, but you're scared, you're in danger. It's you feel totally unworthy of love, so you feel shame. So this is all back here, and this part of the brain activates feelings of shame, inadequacy, unworthiness, evokes feelings of being scared, frightened, anxious, evokes feelings of hurt. See, we've become so casual with afraid, hurt. Hurt is a very primitive emotion, has no brain to it at all, okay? It's just, you hurt me. Well, they just said something to you. They didn't hurt you. Yeah. This is, and you hesitate to say it, but you just say, this is your instinctive brain reacting with no brain power here. They did the best they could. They didn't hurt you. You reacted feeling powerless and danger, that you'll never get love again. So you feel hurt, and hurt is real. It's when you feel excluded from something you need, or someone who you love, you want to be close, and they're not with you. Love is not reciprocated. Mm-hmm. Then you go into fight or flight, and that I feel hurt, and it's a very painful feeling. But we don't want to dwell on hurt. We want to feel it and then go into, well, what am I scared of? And now what am I enraged about? Okay, that's what the flip side of hurt is. I'm enraged, just like the flip side of sadness is anger. And combined in sadness also, you wouldn't be angry or sad if you weren't afraid you're never going to get what you want. See, bad things can happen, but if I know everything's going to get better as a result of it, then it's no longer anger or sad. You see, these layers, there's no source of stress on us that doesn't evoke at least 3 or 4 of those emotions. They actually always, they're all 4 there. It's just not we're able to penetrate and find the depth of our being. For me, being a master of this, years I took to develop this, and I don't have all this success in my life because I write good books. Okay, I can receive it. You see, I'm able to emotionally receive it. This is for women that who really like that book, The Secret. The Secret, the power of attraction. Well, I attract wealth. I attract love. I attract success. Also, my male side works hard for it. That's the male side, but the female side of me attracts. And the way you increase your female side is by processing emotions and coming from a place of love and non-judgmentalness and forgiveness and acceptance, all that. That's what draws in opportunity. I could be a great writer. Nobody read my books. I could have great stuff to say, but nobody wants to hear it. You got to attract. Yeah. And so, that's my work beyond Mars and Venus, which is the relationship skills I teach now, is helping women come back to their female side. Because, they're wanting the man to talk about his feelings. She needs to talk about her feelings and go into her feelings. You'll just get sick of a man talking about his feelings. And that's men going to their female side. Men need to be more on their male side. And now when people say, oh, that's just sexism, I say, what? There's biology here. The biology.
Yes.
When men talk about emotions, their estrogen levels go high.
And then it triggers something in her and she finds them less appealing.
Of course, it makes her testosterone go up and her estrogen goes down. Yeah. Women need 20 times more estrogen to be in love with a man. Okay, so you're not going to be in love with them all the time. It rises and falls as your estrogen rises and falls, but you got to have support to know how to generate estrogen in your body, not take it. And that's why I wrote that whole book. But processing emotions is a massively estrogen producing thing. Now for me, all this estrogen, so I felt broken. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything. I didn't want to live. Okay, that's my male side, totally weak. But it was also where I was. So you have to embrace where you are. So I didn't go to other people for me. Mm-hmm. I did it for me. I became my helper. And this is particularly for men in the grieving process. They need to do it more on their own and then be with other people and hear good things about their loss, hear good things about their spouse. That's for me, was a very powerful journey. When I'm healing Vietnam vets or something like that, people have been, the trauma for men, they get the most healing when they hear somebody else talk about feelings.
Okay.
So I hear somebody else's feelings, my feelings come up. And when I hear somebody talking about feelings of love for Bonnie, or they might have, some people really knew her immediately, it was a shock and their tears would come up. And now they're feeling what I'm feeling and the healing happens. Or they're feeling love for her, which I have inside of me, and the love comes up and heals. So this is how healing happens, is when somebody feels what you feel, there's a release of any negativity. And so but see, for a man, it's more about getting other people to express their feeling that awakens him to his feeling. Mm-hmm. Now there's a place where he might need direction, going to a therapist to help him process his emotions.
And is that just finding the vocabulary about the emotions?
That's right. You got to have it's literally the language of emotions. So you have to be able to look inside and express those emotions and never leave them without getting back in touch with writing what you're grateful for, what you wish what you wanted, what you wish, what you need. And then you go back and you express gratitude for your spouse or your loss. Another thing you do in that process, it's a 3-step process. First, you process the negative emotions, getting back in touch with what you wish and what you want, and forgiveness. Then you imagine that person speaking to you, and you write a letter from them to you, telling you stuff. Okay, and they can, I'm so sorry, I didn't do this for you. So you let them apologize for stuff, even though you didn't get mad at them that much. So you just stay where you're feeling good. You let them say all this loving stuff to you, and then you imagine if they were here to say that, how that would make you feel. Now, part of this is, like I mentioned, sleepless nights for me would be remembering a way I could have been a better husband and feeling all that guilt. So then what I did is I get up and I process that, I write that down, and then now I got to find the other 3 emotions. So the other one that was always easy for me went to guilt and sadness. Okay, I felt so sad. And then I have to go into disappointment to try to bring in my front part of the brain. Mm-hmm. And because that's how you can get out of your monkey brain, is just use the front part of the brain. And anybody who's ever stuck in grief, you should just go online and learn something new, read a book, do something. Or you can read a book which expresses drama, somebody else's pain. That was the whole Greek idea of theater, is that you have humor and you have tragedy. So why do people pay money to go see a tragedy? Because the tragedy allows you to connect with your own feelings if you're a man. And if it's humor, the lightness and playfulness of it allows women to connect with the lightness inside of them. And also the drama helps women feel one with the story, and the lightness helps men be one with the lightness. But there's a huge awakening in men where they're not able to fully access their emotions the way women can. And if you're accessing it from the point of view of my intent here, it's all intention. My intent is to process these emotions, to understand them, to release them, then I'm solving a problem. So if I'm solving a problem, I'm keeping my testosterone up while I'm indulging in this very estrogen stimulating activity. Because whenever you talk about emotions, estrogen goes up. So in the beginning, it was not talking even, it was writing, always with the intent of analysis. I'm analyzing what these emotions are, where they come from, what am I going to learn from it, how to heal it. And I'm also looking for what it brings up from my childhood, what it brings up from my past. So it also brought up issues from my childhood and my past. Levels of vulnerability that I didn't even know exist. See, children are so vulnerable. They're so afraid, afraid that I'll never, well, it really came back to sometimes all your traumas sort of coalesce in one or two big ones. It brought me back to that little 6-year-old boy and just how vulnerable I was, not having enough knowledge to even say, call my mother and have her pick me up.
Yeah.
That didn't even come into my mind. There was just the assumption that if they loved me, they would come get me. So they must not love me. And that's a trigger that every wife goes through when her husband goes to his cave. That triggers inside of her. And she goes, well, if he loved me, he wouldn't pull away from me. But part of what Men Are From Mars teaches, he pulls away because he needs his cave time to stop talking in order to rebuild his testosterone and not get in an argument. Whereas women need to talk to build their estrogen. So healing for women is more about telling everybody what happened. Okay, tell everybody how you feel. And you got to have lots of friends because they'll get sick of you talking.
Yes.
But, yeah, and then you don't feel heard. But the trap women get into, this is where it becomes a big addiction for them.
Okay.
Is if they just talk about what happened and how they feel in terms of, I feel alone. I feel like I'll never find love again. I feel like I'm getting old. I feel like I'm less attractive. I feel, life will never be the same. Okay. Those are called feeling beliefs. They do not heal. They're only pointers to what can heal. So I'll give you an example. If you say, oh, if your husband is ignoring you, a lot of women go, oh, he's ignoring me. I don't feel like he loves me. Now, nobody can argue that because that's what you feel. So if I say, well, of course I love you. Are you telling me that I shouldn't feel that way? See, when you feel, a feeling is, I know this for sure. Okay. So if you hit me and it hurts, then I feel that. So you can't tell me that didn't hurt. That hurt. You can't argue with me about that. Right. That's an absolute reality. So if I feel you don't love me, then I feel absolutely true. You don't love me. I'm talking, when I say I feel, I'm talking, starting here, going to the monkey brain and saying, I feel like you don't love me. I'm telling that child inside of you, your partner doesn't love you. Absolute fact. But if you say, okay, I feel like you don't love me, and that makes me feel, that belief makes me feel scared. Now, this part of the brain is going to say to the monkey brain, why do you feel scared? And if you find the logic behind an emotion, the emotion will go away. Because whenever you have a negative emotion, you're telling yourself a lie. Because life is wonderful. But the monkey doesn't know that. It's like your child being scared. Somebody's going to kill me, mommy. No, we're safe. Daddy's here. Mommy's here. Everything's okay. Child doesn't know that. And when you say, I feel like you don't love me, or when Bonnie dies, what my monkey brain just went right into, I'll never be happy again. Why should I even bother be here? Yeah. So I feel that. And so now I'm just going to affirm that till I want to die. And it will just stay that way over and over and over. That's addictive. Because if I feel you don't love me, or I feel I'll never be happy again, if I feel I can never get love again, that's a major dopamine producer. That's addictive. That's cocaine. Same thing happens to our troops. If they're in a combat situation, they feel they're in danger.
Mhm.
And I could die. I feel like I could die. All right. And it's true. Okay. I feel like I can die. That produces dopamine in the brain at cocaine levels.
Mhm.
That changes the brain, desensitizes dopamine receptors. So now normal life doesn't give them any joy.
Mhm.
Only thing that makes them feel alive is stimulating that high level of dopamine. So what happens is they hate being in combat. They hate the conditions of being there. They want to get out of that. But when they get home, their brains change. Nothing makes them happy. They want to
So
feel
they're
be alive now.
seeking it. They're
They
still
seek it. They'll
seeking it.
seek stimulation. So they're, more people die from motorcycle accidents, suicide, and drug abuse in soldiers after the war than in the war.
Hmm.
Because all addictions is dependence on high stimulation, because the brain now loses part of the brain that would receive, that stimulates dopamine.
Mhm.
So to make an example, cocaine, we all know cocaine, big dopamine stimulator. And people love it when they take it. Oh my God, I feel alive like I've never felt before. I've never taken it, but you have this big dopamine hit. Then scientifically, after one hit, you just lost 30% of your dopamine receptors in the brain. So that means that after that one cocaine hit, the next day, things that would normally make a person happy,
Mhm.
you can only be 70% happy. You've just lost 30% of your capacity to be happy.
So that's an
So-
external source of dopamine coming in. What about a dopamine hit that you're experiencing naturally? Is it as
Well, if it's
detrimental
from
to the
worrying,
brain?
if you believe a lie,
Got it.
that's the most dangerous thing there is. I believe I'm a bad person, so I keep saying I'm a bad person. That's a
Got it.
dopamine hit.
Okay.
If I believe I'll never find love again, that's disaster. That's warfare. That's danger. And you're believing it
Okay.
because you feel it.
Mhm.
And if you feel it, you're giving more credence to it. Well, if you actually say, well, maybe I'll never be alive again, that's different. But I feel I'll never be alive again. I'll never have love again. Okay, I feel it. I'm alone. And you do. We're feeling people. We don't want to get caught in feeling beliefs. We should know that whenever you're feeling a thought, a belief, and it doesn't make you feel good, it's a lie. And your brain will figure that out because the brain has a mechanism. If you can feel the pain, which is what emotions are pain.
Mhm.
If a thought causes pain, the brain says, well, let's get rid of pain. So let's change the thought. It will automatically self-correct. It's self-correcting mechanism. Evolution is a self-correcting mechanism over millions of years. As soon as we got this part of the brain, we are a self-correcting mechanism if we use it.
Mhm.
But you can't use it unless you know how to use it. It's like flying an airplane. You're going to let it just run on automatic and it will automatically happen. That's a monkey.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're in fight or flight, blood flow stops to the prefrontal cortex of the brain. So, we have comfort foods. If we eat a good diet, we're going to eat junk food. Basically we have no control. The monkey takes over. It loves pleasure. It loves sugar, produces high dopamine stimulation. Anger, yelling and screaming produces high dopamine levels. Crying and mourning, beating yourself up, self-punishment. All these things are lies that you're a bad person, or you'll never be happy again, or you're in great danger. So what happens is your brain produces all this high dopamine and it remembers, oh, that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And so when you grieve, there is going to be this high dopamine because it is a huge shock. There's bombs coming down. This is a reality. You're in warfare zone. So naturally you're going to go into fight or flight. But how do you come back out of fight or flight so it's not addictive?
Yeah.
What you do is you learn to identify the emotions, forgiveness, come back in terms of imagining getting what you want. That means creating positive scenes. And then imagining if you had that happen, how would it make you feel? You can even do this whole thing. This was another therapy I did in my own healing, just experimenting with different things to see if anybody knew more than me.
Mhm.
And I did learn one thing, which is it's an imaginary thing, but you grieve, you get down in touch with all your pain and your emotions. And you imagine, how would your life be if she came back? And you take time to imagine growing old together and having this whole thing. Now, the way I got to that was a very interesting guy. He does something called, I don't know what it's called, but it's simply you go into a bit of a trance state, a hypnotic state,
Mhm.
and you do, it's not timeline therapy, which is what I mainly do, is go back to the past, where it's not all about right now, but it's also about there, because it is also about back. But this is, the idea that there's many timelines from past to future. There's many universes, okay? And they're all very similar, but they're all different. I'm trying to remember what the word for it is. Maybe it's too far out to even mention.
No,
Anyway,
go there. No. Yeah.
Okay. So the idea is, this was the meditation he put me into.
Okay.
He said, okay, now you're very relaxed now in this meditation. You relax the body, so you're out of fight or flight.
Mhm.
Now I want you to imagine going up into the sky, and you're going to go up there and look down at yourself in this reality and know that there's an infinite possibilities. And quantum physics talks about this, that we live in an infinite world. Now, infinite is something people don't really think about. That means every possibility that I could be has happened, including the possibility that I ended up being you. So, because there is only one substance in the whole world. So there's all these possibilities of everything. If I'd only chosen to do this, what would have happened in my life? Well, in one of these possibilities, it exists. It's a reality. So it's just, it's these, forget what the phrase of it is, but multiple realities. Okay.
Yeah.
Infinite number of realities of your life. Now, so you go up and you say, now, in order to heal this, you're going to go up here to this command station. What number reality is Bonnie still alive in?
Mhm.
And then 73 came to my mind. He says, okay, now we're going to fly over, and here's your number 1, here's 2, 3, all the way over to 73. And now you're going to swoop down into that reality and join yourself in number 73. And you and Bonnie are still alive. And what are you doing? And, you know, you were able to beat this cancer. You were able to what happened? Oh, she got cancer, but you got rid of the tumor. I talked to the right specialist. We went to Germany, which we possibly could have done. We didn't know if it was possible. And we had them actually, just because we wanted it and not because they had protocols, they took the tumor out.
Mhm.
And then our treatments all worked and she got better. And now what we're doing said, go further. And what else happened? And what else happened? We went all the way to growing old together, you know, our children growing up, our grandchildren growing up, and us living happily ever after and sharing together. So I created this whole scene of how we're going to live. And that is still there. I mean, what I did is I grew neural connectors that this is not so bad. And in my fantasy world, this happened, because everything we react to is our fantasy world. Everything is our interpretation of this reality.
Mhm.
And so you just give yourself other things to think about. Now, if that's a far out thing. Okay.
No, it's super helpful. It has to do with
Yeah.
imagery. It really, yeah.
Yes. The brain is plastic. So after another way of doing that one is that's going into these infinite realities, pick one from that and go and enjoy that for a little while. You're actually growing a part of your brain, the wiring in your brain that says everything's okay. And it reinforces the most important thing when it comes to loss. Reinforcing the circuits in your brain that say, I can have. Because all your pain is about, I can't have now, because there's that need integrate. So you've got to keep imagining I can have. And that was the second step of it, where then you not only process your feelings, but then you have to go out and get what it is that you can have, that I can still have this and have this. And for men, often that means they suddenly, like I went out and bought a car, you know, and 2 cars. I got a Tesla and I got the other one. Yeah. My wife went a completely different.
Say, I got a Bentley and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, it's a convertible, you know. So I can have. And so that was, and also finding a relationship. Now I have a girlfriend and very deeply in love with her, and I can have great sex again, you know. So this is not like I can't have. It's whatever it is that you felt you lost, you need to start finding I can have. And this is a hard thing, because if you can say I can have that, now you're happy. And remember that mind trick that our brain goes, well, if I'm happy, that means I didn't love my wife. If I have sex with another woman, then I'm betraying my wife. You see it, and I'm a monogamous person. So I couldn't do that unless I realized that this doesn't mean I don't love my wife. My wife's not here now. And there's a nice thought, of course, in heaven, she would want me to go on with my life, yes. You know, although a lot of people said that to me and did nothing. I wasn't, maybe.
But you had to feel that for yourself.
Yeah, I had to feel it for myself. And what to me, it was understanding the source of my pain is that need integrate that says I can't have love anymore, because she is love for me. And this is what happens to people. A lot of people have abandonment issues. They're triggered a lot in their relationships because they lose a parent when they're young. Mm-hmm. And so there's just some part of it, always careful. I could lose that. I can't have everything I need. And I think the foundation of, to a great extent, I attribute much of my success in life to my mother, who lived an example of I can have. She was an abundant person, amazing person. And she also had a father who left a nice trust fund for her. So she had that sense always that I can have. And she was traumatized at birth when her father died. Her mother had already died. And then her father died at a shock, and she went into a coma. She was in a coma, they got her in a life support thing in the hospital. And she went to the other side, these people that have near-death experiences, and her father said, no, you should go back. And she said, I don't want to go back without you, Daddy. And he said, I will always be with you. And so she came back. And so she had that experience of this altered reality, which is my father's always with me. I can have his love and support, as opposed to I can't have it. So this is all sort of the coming back to this one theme of I can have. And grieving is a process of embracing the part of us that imagines that I can't have. That's the monkey brain. That's my daughter Lauren crying, I can't have the ice cream. You can have the ice cream, just not yet. You'll get it. You'll get it. It's a process. We don't do it all the time. And so you write out your feelings, or you speak out your emotions to somebody who feels your pain. Then you don't have to be so sophisticated, by the way, and all this processing. But I don't know how full the healing is, but literally to be in the presence and share your emotions, open up the door to what somebody can see your emotions, who's have felt that level of pain. There's instant healing of a wave. It's like an onion. There's layers and layers and layers and layers till then you think back and you can talk about what happened. I can think back and talk about what happened, and I got all choked up. I can have emotions. I could cry right now, I suppose. If I think about when she died, I think about the last thing she said to me is, you look so handsome. I said to her, look, honey, I've got on clean khaki pants and the shirt you bought me. And she said, oh, John, you look so handsome. And she died. But there's no pain. You see, this is pure emotion, but it's just pure love. Just to have that in my life, to have her in my life was so amazing. How lucky I am, how grateful I am. And yet the pain is not there. The pure love, the pure emotion is there. That is healing. That is healing. And I still have pictures of her everywhere. I don't have to ignore anything. And one of the things I'll say in part of healing is, don't do anything, don't do anything to avoid your emotions. You want your emotions to come up. Then you have to go out in other situations and start interacting and getting the things that your partner gave you that replace that need. You have to start replacing that need. You can't just go from, I don't have what I need, to I can have what I need. You go through the grief and you get back to, I had what I need. So your gratitude with that, and you come back to, and I can have what I need by going out and getting things that you need. Okay, so you start talking to people who feel empathy for you. You start spending time with friends. You start watching funny movies. You start watching dramas. You start doing things to start filling up that empty tank where you begin to experience, I can have what I need. Now, fortunately, I wrote a whole book on needs. And
which one? Tell us which one.
Okay, the ones on needs is called How to Get What You Want and Want What You Have. Okay, it's a success book. I'm a successful person. People say, write about how you became successful. It's not so much from hard work. It's not from marketing skills. It's because I process my emotions every time. My first book was What You Feel You Can Heal. Nobody wanted that book. I was rejected by all publishers. Nobody cared about it. Okay, then another book came, Men, Women, and Relationships, and no big publisher would take that, but it started doing well. So I was knocked down again and again and again and again, but I processed my feelings. Every loss, you come back to your emotions. Your heart is open. And when your heart is open, you have confidence, you have power. You see, your soul talks to you and says, you can do this, you'll do it. And I got big stories on that one, but I was going to talk about the needs. Okay, so this book is about success, and it's about when you have setbacks. And now one common setback, let's just look at a common setback that everybody can relate to. You're in a relationship and you feel dissatisfied with your partner. Everybody's been there, okay? And if you haven't, if you haven't gotten upset about something in your relationship, you're lying to yourself. Uh, or you're just in an old-fashioned relationship, which is the role mate relationship, which is where you don't look to your partner for emotional support. Women look to the man for financial support, and men look to the wife for sex and children. That's it. Okay, those are your primary needs in those situations. Now, once we become more conscious, we have emotional needs. Maslow talked about when you get out of primitive state, your higher needs come into play. That's emotional fulfillment. And then after that, when you fulfill your emotional needs through relationship with others and the world, then your genius can come through. And that's my 28 books. That's my genius coming through. So, and everybody has it in their own way. Not they're going to write books, but it could be plumber, cook, a chef, whatever, a restaurant owner, a business investor, whatever it is, your genius comes through when your heart can be maintained open. And grieving is one of the most powerful ways to go deeper and find the places where your heart is closed. And then when life is most difficult to open your heart, then you grow stronger. So if I want to build muscles, I have to go to the gym and push hard. Yeah. If I have all muscle mass. I mean, I got abs, I got the whole thing, and it's wonderful. If I didn't have a trainer, I wouldn't have it. Okay. I go to the trainer. He watches me as he puts more weight each time. And he sees where I barely can do anymore. And he says, John, I know you can give me 5. Sometimes he's merciful. I know you got 3 more in you, but I'll do it, and I'll do it. But it's that extra push that, builds muscle. If you want to build muscle, that's what builds muscle. Now, as I said that's for men. What builds muscle in women is forgiveness and acceptance and love. Challenge. If your partner or life challenges your ability to love and you find love, you become more loving. If a man is challenged by setbacks and failures and obstacles, and he comes back to try again, okay, picks himself up to do it again with confidence, I've learned something, I'm going to try something new, then he grows in his personal power. Okay, so it's being challenged. And so a loss is a big challenge. If we can face that challenge wisely, like if I did the wrong weights and over-exercise, I'd hurt myself. It did happen the other day. I just went too far. I couldn't admit that I was going too far. And my back spasmed out. So my back went out. So again, if you do too much, it's not good for you. Well, God gives us just the right amount. But he also gives us the teachers to teach us how to process it. And if you don't listen to them, you're stuck in it. You would have bad back forever. And here's talk about how synchronicity works when your heart is open. Magic happens in my life all the time. So I went to the gym and I pushed really hard, harder than ever on some foot presses, which strained my lower back. The next morning it went out. And the next morning at 11 o'clock, I had an appointment with a new body worker that somebody said, you should try this guy because he's amazing. I've never been to a body worker in 10 years. But you should try this guy. He's amazing. So the one day in 20 years where my back goes out, at 12 o'clock that day, I've got an appointment with a miracle worker who took away the whole spasm in one session.
Perfect.
And that's how it works. Life gives you what you need when you're aware of, I have what I need. When you're focusing on, I don't have what I need, then life gives you, you're not looking at it. So if you're looking in the wrong place. So the theory is this. And I remember I did 6 shows on Oprah where she wanted everybody to get this. She said it changed her life. She loved it. And it was in my book called How to Get What You Want What You Have. Also in that book are great grieving techniques, because that's part of how you become successful in life is when you don't get what you want, how do you process the emotions that come up? Now let's just take so one chapter is on your many different needs. Mm-hmm. So let me give you an example of needs. Let's say, I meet my wife and I'm in joy. It's just fantastic. I'm so happy to meet her and fall in love. We made love. It was fantastic. Okay. Just these heavenly experiences. That's like the same thing happened. Imagine you have 10 vitamins that you need. We'll just focus on the primary ones, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Those are 6. And then there's a bunch of extra B vitamins. You have these 10 vitamins your body essentially needs. And this is a metaphor, by the way, but you're missing one, and that's vitamin D. You have all your vitamins, but you're missing vitamin D. You'll be depressed. All depression is also a deficiency in vitamin D. And so next thing that happens is you suddenly get somebody, you go out into the sun, and in 20 minutes, sun will raise your vitamin D up temporarily. So suddenly you've got all your other vitamins and you're feeling kind of blue that day, and you go out and there's sunshine, you go, oh, feels fantastic, because you already had all your vitamins and now you got the one vitamin that you're missing. And that's the vitamin that the sun gave you. And literally the sun creates vitamin D. Well, let's say in your life, you've got a life and most of your vitamins are being met. So you're happy in your life to a great extent. And then you meet your romantic partner, your soulmate to be, and you meet them and you go, oh, this is amazing. I was happy, but now I'm happier. That's because they can only give you one vitamin. They're like the sunshine. And now you got the sunshine, they're living with you, vitamin D every day. But you focus so much on how much you're enjoying vitamin D, you neglect all your other vitamins. So if I had no vitamins in my body, but I went out into the sunshine, it's not going to make me happy. I've got to have all my vitamins full before sunshine will make me that happy. So, and even while it's making me happy, I also have to keep supplying myself with the other vitamins. So that's the whole idea of the foundation for success, is not to desire more from a place of I don't have enough. When you desire more from a place of I've got a lot, then you get more. If you desire more because you're empty and now you're trying to take, you're trying to get, you get less. If you desire more, this is part of success. I want more, I want more, I want more. And I have so much appreciation and gratitude for what I have. That's the two things together. They're like opposite forces. Some people are unhappy and so they want more and they never get more. And some people are happy with what they got, but they never get more because they don't have desire, because we think they can't coexist, but they do. When your heart is open, you always want more. That's the nature of life. Why not have more? Celebrate life. More and more is great, but from a place of I'm so grateful for what I got and what more is there. So that feeling of I have what I want, what I need, is your basic vitamins of emotional needs. So one emotional need we develop in the womb. And that's our need for spirituality.
Okay.
Because see, when you're in the womb, everything's done for you. So we have digestion, we have all these things. I have a very strong belief in that all my success comes to me. It's the destiny, it's the divine order of things. So God is always helping me. So I have an army of angels. Even in first grade, I wore like a sailor suit, but it was a Marine sergeant outfit. I thought it was a general's outfit. And you can imagine me, this cute little first grader wearing a hat and gold buttons everywhere and bright purple Marine
Adorable.
outfit. Absolutely adorable. So all the women teachers circled around me. He's so adorable. He's so cute. And my reaction to that, I am not cute. I'm a general. Where is my army? Where is my power? I have been betrayed. So anyway, so I do feel I have an army of angels helping me all the time. And they're there. And so that's the womb experience. In my book, How to Get What You Want What You Have, it's really focusing on creating an attitude of I can have, and then I also want more. But I can have is really a foundation. It's a feeling of abundance. You're very generous when you feel, I can have so much support. I have money in my bank account. I can pull on that. So we have to recognize that, let's say you're in a relationship and you're feeling some dissatisfaction from your partner. The concept is that love tank, which is called the romance love tank, is already full. Once a tank is full, it's no longer satisfying. Just take that in for a minute. It's literally when a tank is somewhat empty, a vitamin deficiency, if I have vitamin D deficiency and have all the others, just getting vitamin D makes me feel better. But once I'm not filling up, it stops making me feel so happy. It doesn't have the power to make you happy. Happiness is movement. It's growth. Unhappiness is stagnation. It's not more and more and more. So as long as it's more and more and more, you feel good. But once it's full, it's not more and more. So what has to happen at that time, whenever you're dissatisfied, you're looking in the wrong direction to fill up. So there's 9 different ways to fill up, or maybe more. But the general thing is the first part of life is in the womb. And let's say your parents wanted to abort you or something. That would mean you have a trauma there, not wanted. And so in your life, that's a trauma you're going to have to deal with. And it's often healed by having a stronger spiritual awareness. Okay, so spirituality, because that's a need to feel that we are powerless. We depend upon something greater than ourselves. That's what all prayer is, oh, I can't do anything. I need your help, God, that thing.
Yeah.
So, and miracles happen, amazing things when people feel I need help. Look at any life thing where some magical thing happened. It's you get to that point, I can't do it for myself. If you can't do it for myself, the help comes if you're open to it. So that's a need, which is we depend upon something greater than. And so for some people, they don't have a belief system allows them to believe in God or spirituality. It's a higher power, your own potential. And so if you don't have that need in your life, which is movement towards higher potential, growing, then what happens is, in a sense, that's the higher truth. Then you're expecting your partner to be perfect, or you're expecting yourself to be perfect, instead of going, there's a reason for everything. It's a perfect plan. Some belief system that says there's something better than, higher than this. Okay. And I have access to it. That's the womb. Everything's done for you there. Now, the next, you come into this world, you're powerless, but you have parents that take care of you and do things for you. And if you have reasonably good support for your first 7 years, then you grow in your ability to trust, if I have a need, somebody's going to be there for me. But if you have, somebody, parents not there, parents have to work really hard, or parents are too selfish, parents are, drinking too much, whatever it is, and you don't get what you need, then the rest of your life, you have this greater need. It's a need that you have to work on. That's a tank that empties quite quick until you heal that tank. And tanks will always empty over time, just like vitamins run low if you don't keep taking them. So there's this idea. So if what I'm missing is vitamin P, that would be parental love. Now, as adults, I don't need parents, but I need people who are wiser than me, people who can provide something for me. Books can do that. Education can do that. Teachers can do that. Doctors can do that. Somebody that you're dependent upon, that you trust, who can give to you. That's a need. And it shouldn't be just your partner is the one you trust. So, because you're dissatisfied with them, it's because you don't have somebody else in your life to trust and depend on. You're not all dependent on them. That's just too needy. So you have people you can turn to give you support. So that's vitamin P. Have vitamin G as to feel a higher power. Vitamin P is parental. Then that tank's empty. It needs to be full. So one time I lost sexual interest in my wife, and I realized I must be low in vitamin P, because I'm looking for her to sort of be this perfect parent for me, in a sense, do things for me, which happens, you get in a marriage, your wife starts taking care of you for a guy, and it's like your mother did.
Yes.
So you start projecting childlike feelings onto her. You can't have sexual feelings, because that part of you is before you had sexual awakening. So I just had to call up my mother and start talking to my mom. And it wasn't like, oh, Mom, I need your help or whatever. I just said, I'm thinking about buying a new car. I was getting this at that time, some car. And she said, oh, that's too expensive. You could get a better deal. And have you tried this? So she just started giving me advice, which annoyed me. But I'm just calling her just to get in touch with my feelings about my mother, which are really positive, but also there's little chinks in the armor there. So I said, oh, Mom, it's okay, but I really appreciate your advice. So I could feel a little resistance to my mother and let it go. And now,
as opposed to your wife.
Opposed to my wife.
Oh my gosh, this is brilliant. Okay.
We project all the emptiness onto whoever we're getting the most love from. Once that tank is full, anything empty over here will get projected on your partner, and particularly in romantic love. So the next period of life, everything happens from one perspective in cycles of 7. So we go to the womb. Then there's this cycle of 7. Our first 7 years is we're more bonded to our parents. And usually that's the way it used to be. Around 6, 7, 8 years old, you would go off to school then. That's when you start pulling away from your parents and playing games, and there's rules and learning things without any pressure, by the way. It's playing. Learn the big lesson we need to learn from age 7 to 13, 14, that 7-year period. These are rough, is how to be happy. You need to feel safe. And, for me, I didn't always have that skill to be happy. Now I'm happy all the time, but my parents were always there for me. So I have a lot of trust. So my wife says I'm the luckiest person in the world because I expect things to happen. And so things happen. An example of that is if we're going to the movies and the town is a little crowded, 3 blocks away, she'll say, there's a parking spot, take that. And I say, I think let's go to the movie. Well, maybe there'll be something right there. And lo and behold, we get there and it's there. That, and I would have never known it was waiting for me if I had taken that spot. So part of developing trust is practicing trust. But another thing is just having trust, having intuition that turns out in the right way. A lot of women, for example, have a broken trust with their father. If the father was not available, he's working all the time, or he's not a good father. Some fathers are alcoholics and mean and cruel and all this stuff. It happens, you got good and bad. But sometimes it's just the father who's not available because he's busy working and all the time trying to provide for the family, and he doesn't know how to parent. So the little girl experiences that I can't get what I need from my father. Okay, so she feels this incompletion, and that's the first 7 years that happens. So then later on in life, if a man is unavailable to her, she'll feel, oh, this is the man I can trust.
Yes.
And as a grown woman, if you trust somebody, you then feel sexual arousal. So you feel sexual arousal primarily to men that you can't trust, men that you don't know, men that are not available to you, or men that are dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where you don't want to follow your sexual arousal if you have a pattern, women, of men who lose interest in you right away. They have sex with you and they're gone.
Right.
This is your pattern.
What do we do with that? That's pretty common.
Yeah, it's very common today because of the emotional needs. We've grown into this higher emotional awareness. And as a child, we have these emotional needs. In previous generations, we didn't have them so much. We're different beings now. You see, our parents were more independent. We're not in a dangerous world as much as what it was before. When people are capable of fulfilling their lower needs, their higher needs come into play. So we're all a generation of where emotional needs are very important, but the old rules are not about giving emotional support. We still don't have emotional intelligence for most people. So you don't get your emotional needs met from your daddy. Your mother's not getting her emotional needs met from your daddy. And that's even a bigger player in the whole thing. So men can't be trusted. But I need my daddy's love. So how do I change myself to get my daddy's love? And so what happens is you will start to trust the wrong people. And so the way you correct that without having to process so deeply, although grieving loss can correct it. Another thing is behavioral shifts. Everything I talk about internal, there has to be behavioral shifts too.
Okay.
Then which take willpower, because you want to indulge in your pain and suffering. Then you have to go do something that would feed one of your other love tanks. So with this woman situation, what you do if you're attracted to get turned on right away is whenever you get turned on to a man right away, he's the wrong guy. So you already know your intuition told you. So run the other direction. And who can you go towards? You go towards, and primarily in the beginning, you go towards men who go towards you more. So you're in no way pursuing them. There should always be a sense of, I'm not sure, and he should win me over. As opposed to whenever you feel I got to win him over, I want to impress him. It's a job interview. I want to look good, do it. You're with the wrong guy. You're in the wrong place in your brain. You see, you're in a conditioned response place, and you tend to trust the wrong people. And the right people, you don't have any attraction towards. So you have to work, you have to take time to practice the techniques that I teach on how to be more feminine and depend on a man. And if you have this tendency to want to please men, you're always going to be into the monkey brain and that little child that suppresses who you really are and what you think and what you feel and what you need and everything. So what you have to do is find a guy who's more interested in you. You're not interested in him, but you're going to grace him with the potential of you might enjoy his presence. That's it. So then you can practice these skills I teach in Mars, Venus on a Date. And these are skills and in Beyond Mars and Venus has the most skills. And that is how to ask what you want, how to reveal your authentic self, how to express all your thoughts and beliefs without arguing, without being a people pleaser, basically, and without being mean and rude, and without turning them off. These are all like dynamics of how to do this, even like how to say no to sex.
Yeah.
Today, everybody's so much pressure to have sex right away. And so if you have sex right away, for sure, you don't even feel like it if it's the right guy, because he's not the one who triggers your sexual feelings.
I
right
never
away.
thought of it this way. This is really intriguing.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
So when you start practicing things, he wins you over by persistence, but also you have to experience a massive amount of safety to express what you think.
Okay.
So if you find a man where you can have conversations where you completely disagree with this point of view, this is good practice, where you disagree, but you don't do it in a way where you're trying to change him. You see, arguments discomforts start whenever somebody feels you're trying to change them. So a guy has a point of view. You'd always want to compliment it regardless of what it is. Well, that makes sense. Or why did you think that? Well, that's important. I see that. I can see it from your point of view. I have a whole different picture. And then express completely your true thoughts without editing, without any intention to change him. And then the next thing is give him opportunities to do things for you. Okay. So then, basically, my friend, he says, oh, when couples, he's a good buddy of mine, is a relationship expert as well. We don't agree on everything. He says that when you date a woman, you should split the bill. And his logic of it is that if I pay for the bill, then you'll feel obligation to me, and you don't want to feel obligation. And my thing is, you should always make sure he splits the bill, but it's the guy who's trying to impress you more than you're trying to impress him. That's the prerequisite, because then you don't feel the obligation to be somebody else for him. You're not really that interested in him anyway. You're testing him out, and you're giving him the grace of you possibly enjoying what he provides for you. Because see, what happens is, in order to bond as a woman, you have to feel I'm safe to express my points of view, what I think and feel. I'm completely safe to ask for help and get it. And he should do things for me. He should win me over. So these are all things women, old-fashioned women, just don't do. You smile and say yes to a man. You don't ask for more. Whatever he gives you, you learn to appreciate. And men like that, but they don't grow in love for you if they're these higher level beings. If they're old-fashioned men, it's a whole different world. They don't exist anymore. They all died. Men today, we're all looking for emotional fulfillment.
Okay.
It's a different world today. And the rules for relationship are all monkey rules from a time that they're role-mate rules, not soulmate rules. Soulmate rules is everything is designed to create bonding and emotional fulfillment through primarily romantic skills, good communication, empathy and understanding, and selfless service on the man's part, and unconditional forgiveness and acceptance on the woman's part. So these are like challenges. Remember, I talked about challenges. Men have to, lift heavy weights and do the difficult and dangerous. And women have to, difficult and dangerous for them is to learn to forgive and trust and work on developing those abilities. And that's a whole book written on how to develop those strengths. But dating a man that you're not trying to pursue, if you're a woman, really makes it easier for you to apply these things. Otherwise, all these monkey conditioning comes into play, instincts come into play, and you want to run the show from the prefrontal cortex of the brain. So we went down a rabbit hole just then. And what I was talking about is these emotional needs. So very quickly, spiritual needs, the needs for some kind of expert in your life that can teach you things, guide you, and so forth, where you learn something will be helpful for you to fulfill a need. Then you have this need to be happy, which is to be a part of a group where you feel safe. Now, I didn't feel safe as a part of a group. My brothers were all jealous of me because clearly my parents loved me more, because my mother said we made them love me more. He just makes you love him. Imagine me in that little soldier's outfit, okay? Out angry because everybody thinks I'm cute. I was adorable. But also, I had 4 older brothers, and my parents, this is Texas, and when we misbehaved, my mother would say, I'll tell your dad, and we'd all straighten up. And occasionally I'm telling your dad, and he would come home and he'd pull out his belt and whip you. As shocking as that sounds in our today's world, that was standard practice back in Texas, and still is around the world in many places. Men pull out the belt and whip that kid. And the mother might twitch, they takes a switch and switches him. But mom never messed with any of that. She was always the good guy. Dad's the bad guy, but only occasionally he'd pull out the belt. That was it. But by the time I came along, my mother said, convince my father that he didn't need to do that anymore. It didn't seem to work with the other brothers.
Interesting.
They said, let's just never punish John and see what happens. So I've never been punished in my life. And never. My parents just, how do I know I did something wrong? They told me, and that was it. Yeah. No consequences, no punishment, other than the consequences I created, but not with them. Unconditional love as far as the idea of punish, because people punish their children because they think it's good for them.
Yes.
But punishment is an old-fashioned way of communicating what you did is wrong. And the bigger the punishment means it's a bigger wrong. Mm-hmm. But actually, when you have good communication skills, you don't have to tell the child through punishment what you did is wrong. You just tell them. They hear it. That's it.
Yeah.
But the only way you have good communication skills, learn how to listen to a child with emotional intelligence, as we talked about before. Then they will listen to you. And if what they did is wrong, they'll learn from it and change. But if you shame someone and punish someone, they actually don't change. That's research has proven that. The more punished a person is in life, the more criminal they become. Hurt people, hurt others. And punishment is a big hurt. One dramatic example of that, when Oprah did a show on mothers of men on death row.
Oh.
So these are murderers. So what's their childhood like? And one woman said, Oprah, I did everything I could to knock some sense into that kid. You actually go to my house, the walls are red from the many times I beat their head against the wall when they misbehaved.
Oh,
Brain
wow.
damage. You know, this is like, there's a whole nother way of parenting. That's my book, Positive Parenting, basically, but it's Children Are From Heaven is the title of the book. So it's learning how to have better communication skills so there's no need to punish your children. And I know it's the case because I was never punished. I turned out just fine.
Yeah.
But the problem with it is that my brothers were punished. And they were mad at me because they knew I didn't get punished. I mean, I go to the room and my dad would say, okay, bend over and make noises. And he would whip the chair because the brothers were like, is he getting punished? And they figured it out. I wasn't. So they took it out on me. They punished me. So they were so jealous and angry at me. So that period of time was a little bit hard for me. I lived in fear, although I was a happy kid, but there was fearfulness around my brothers. And I mean, that they buried me one time. They threw me in a fire one time. They threw me off the roof one time. They threw me upside down on a pole and cracked my head. They did a whole bunch of stuff to me from time to time. A few bruises here and there. I survived. But I was very serious after that. Very sincere, but serious. Now I'm lighthearted and sincere and serious. So I hadn't yet let that lighthearted playfulness part of me out. And I wouldn't say it's totally healed because I still don't like playing games because I might lose. But if you go through that period of time where you can win and lose, everything's okay. You develop this playful part of you. But I have figured out in investing, I win and lose. And certainly in marriage, I win and lose, meaning that some days my wife is a storm. And that's okay. I put on my jacket and umbrella and so forth. So that's to realize life is never always the same temperature.
Yeah.
But how you adapt to it is the key. Go with the flow. So anyway, so that's the need for happiness. And I give talks in my adult life and I was serious and sincere and people all like it. But there were never laughter in the room. So I decided I needed to heal that. And so I took acting classes where they do the spontaneous stuff where everybody, you build pictures and stage just being spontaneous and nobody can do anything wrong.
Okay.
So you can make any mistakes and nobody ever judges you and they add on it and they build on it. And so this is what actors do. They become uninhibited. And then suddenly I started teaching and everybody's laughing and I'm having fun. So I actually healed that through these acting classes where they improv classes really helped me feel safe to be uninhibited and spontaneous. And then everybody's laughing in my talks. I make jokes all the time. My sense of humor came out. So that was 7 to 13. Then 13 to 21, we figure people become men, they grow up, women become adults. That used to be the cutoff point. Well, it's around puberty to 21. There's actual brain changes that take place. And during that time, a new need emerges, a new love tank emerges. And that love tank is education. It's self-definition. What do I know? What do I not know? Who can guide me with that? You need mentors at that stage as well. You need mentors a lot. In the early stage, it's somebody who knows more than you. Here, it's somebody who holds you accountable, like being tested, okay? And how good are you? You have to learn to measure yourself. Often girls form cliques to measure themselves. Well, she's this, but I'm that and everything. And boys have competition to measure themselves. That sense of identity, which is separate from your parents. So that's called disidentification, where you start finding yourself as separate from your family and your parents. Now you have your clique of guys where they learn about being guys, girls learn about being girls, sex creates sexual attraction. And in school, there's grades. That's when I think people should be graded, is to see how good am I at this, how not good am I at that, and learn that just because I'm not good at this doesn't mean I'm not good at everything. See, that's how you learn how to not take things so personally. It's like, well, maybe I made a mistake there, but I've done all this good stuff over here. I think it's abusive to grade children on everything.
Yes.
It just simply,
What do you
nobody's good
see
at everything.
happen? What do you see happen? Why?
Well, you always feel inadequate. You feel inadequate. I'm not straight. My parents, they wanted straight A's. I wanted straight A's. I wanted to be top of the class, but there were certain subjects foreign language, I couldn't do. My brain just doesn't do that. And so it was like a C, I never felt confident. So I make all A's and a C. So I'm a loser. See how that is? And if they just made that pass fail, that was something I really don't care about that much. It turned out I speak Martian and Venusian.
Right.
Male, female, I can speak, but that I can't. And that's due to some kind of hearing challenge as a child. I had some hearing thing happen. So can't really hear the distinction in words so much, which helped develop intuition. So everything's got a good side to it, but not good at foreign languages. Anyway, so that's education. And if you want to fill up your tank, now you're mad at your wife, go learn something. Go take a class and forget your wife or husband for a while and fill up that love tank and feel really excited about that. Then there's 21 to 28. This is a very important time that people miss out on now, which is if they get married during that time, suddenly their happiness becomes about their partner's happiness. Now, they're not mature enough to be in that situation. They can be somewhat in that situation, but the problem is women who don't have a sense of who I am, what I want, what I like, but they think, what is my husband like? And that gives them joy. They never learn who they are. So, and same thing if you have children at that age, well, you're going to give yourself to your children, but you're not really mature enough. Ultimately, you're giving yourself to your children. You don't know what you want. Now, this is for a highly evolved being, in the past at 13, women were having babies, so but we're at a higher level of consciousness. The more evolved you are, longer it takes to mature. So now used to be, you hit adulthood at 21, but now you're really not an adult till you're 28. You have a whole nother level of growth that can occur because we have this higher level of consciousness, which is 21 to 28, which is a time of exploration of who you are, how to manage your reactive brain, how to not overreact to things, what are the things you like to do. Pretty much in your teenage years, you learn what you're good at, what you're not, but you continue doing all those love tanks all along. But in the 20s, it's really about following your heart and not letting anybody else design your life. Okay, so this is what I want to do, and you experiment. I do this, I like that, I do this, I like that, I'm good at this. So you're developing based upon you're the boss, you're driving the car completely. So that's complete disidentification from what the school says you should be. So you're a little bit of a rebel there. And in terms of doing what makes you happy, but also caring about the group you're with, making it safe, all that. So you build on these needs to be a whole person. Then comes 28, and that's the highest divorce time there is. And that's because so many people have big changes around 28, because that's when you wake up and go, hey, I'm no longer following what other people say. I'm going to do what I want to do. That's sort of the maturing of that 8-year period. And it's more dramatic because if you haven't been taking care of your needs before that, usually around 28, you say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I have other things to do.
I lived this.
Yeah. Well, most people have, if they have some self-reflection.
Yeah.
Then the next cycle is 28 to 35. Now, that is the time when people are most interested, particularly now, in getting married and pairing up and so forth. It's a time when we really want to find love and share love and be in partnership with somebody else. If you have a sense of who I am, then you can be in partnership with somebody else in a more compromising way, but also being true to your values. You see, you have to have a sense of self before you can give up a part of yourself for someone else. So you give, but you keep. Okay, if I'm going to give, then let's exchange. Okay, so there's an exchange that happens. Women will tend to give more and get less and keep giving more and then resent. And men will get more and think, okay, I don't have to do more to get it. And they get lazy. So that's your 28 to 35 bucket. Okay, that's your romantic bucket in there. And not that you don't have it your whole life, but it really matures at that point. And now as you get older, you still have to keep filling that bucket. And you have to keep filling the fun bucket and the teenage bucket of what can I do and who am I and learning new things. And then you also have the mentor bucket where you still need to depend on someone wiser to you. And then you need a spiritual bucket, or at least personal growth, to go, okay, there's more for me to achieve, a higher power, and I'm not alone. So you got to handle all these buckets. Now, just very quickly, the next bucket is the unconditional love. Around 35, once you can have a relationship which is working, then you experience this unconditional love. Particularly, you need to find that part of you that gives without thinking of returning. Now, it's built into our biology now, which is many women are having babies later, and we'll see it will happen more and more, because if you're one of these mature souls, it's really around 35 that you can fully give of yourself freely to your children. Now, you can have children earlier and it will evoke those feelings, but then you might miss out on who you are and what you need. But anyway, We need to give unconditionally. You have a pet, where I live, everybody's got a golden retriever. This is Marin County. They're such lovable dogs, but you have to take care of them.
Yes.
We have a little schnauzer, she's the most adorable dog. So you have to feed it, you have to walk it, you have to pet it, and see what dogs do that women don't understand is dogs will come up to you and they want love, they're looking at you like, feed me, and when you touch them, they go, oh, yes, yes, yes. And they miss you and they'll come jump on your lap. And so it's like they ask for the love that they want and they give it unconditionally. And so they wake up, they activate in us kind of an unconditional love back. So taking care of poor people, taking care of the garden. This is why nuns will always be taking care of the poor, because they don't have their children. Yeah. But we need to feel that we can give freely to others without taking anything back. It's a need that we have, and it grows. The other day I was helping some needy people. They needed it, and I could give to them without expecting anything back. So that's a need that we have. My children will always be that way. I give to them whatever I can. So they evoke that, they fill that bucket, and then the next bucket, as you get 42, is usually called the midlife crisis, which is now happening at 49, but in the old days, the midlife crisis, and it's where basically you many of your love tanks are empty. They never got filled. So here you are ready to move on. Your soul says, I can't move on until those others are full. Yeah. So you do crazy things. You realize, oh, I've been giving so much in this relationship. I'm done with it. And I'm going to do what I want to do. Well, why didn't you do that before? Because you didn't know how to fill that love tank then. But now you get to this next level. You can't sort of move ahead until you fill all the ones behind to a certain extent. But your biology, your brain development says, now it's about serving my community. It's about work. It's about some way of reciprocity in the community. It's not unconditional. It's I'm doing this and I want to serve, but I also want to get something back. Okay. So that's where you get paid for your work and you have a career. So this is where career becomes very important for both men and women. This is 42 to 49 is like working and getting back something for it. Unconditional love is charity work. This is actually making money. And so you got to do that. Or at least having an effect where you get something back for it. Okay, now where you're expecting something. That's 7 times 7, that's up to 49. And that's like a cycle. And depending upon, a lot of people become depressed at 49 years old. And that's because at that stage, before you can move on to, instead of depending on God, which is what you did in the womb, God now depends on you to serve the planet. So this is where selfless service to the world comes in. And if you're not making a difference in the world beyond your family and your little community, then a part of you feels empty. And somewhat a lot of people do, because they don't really have the ability to, in a sense, reach out to the world. They become more involved in politics. A lot of older people are involved with politics, and they also want to travel the world. So they're experiencing beyond their normal circle. They're expanding out to more of a global person and going, enjoying things, whatever, nice retirement. But they are retiring. They really need to keep, and they'll die soon. They need to keep doing the other love tanks. They need to be working in the context of being a global citizen as well. So, and not that that's all the time, it's just more of an interest in politics and what's going on and voting and whatever is a good way to do that. I have the benefit of being able to do Zoom calls all around the world. So that's really fun too. Yeah. But not everybody can do that, but they can interact with the global politics of the planet and do good. The whole environmentalism, doing up for global warming or various things that causes that people are in for the world. You have to be involved with something bigger than yourself, bottom line. That's one of your love tanks. But if you're just doing that, you're going to run out of your hormones. You got to have your romantic hormones. You got to have your unconditional hormones. You got to have your mentor hormones. You got to have your divine hormones. All those are your love tanks. So if you go to Marine World or where some of these fairs you go, they have these Chinese performers. One of the things they do is where they have plates. And they put the plate on top of a stick. Or you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They spin one. Okay, then they'll put another one and they'll spin it. And then that one starts to wobble and they'll go back and spin it. And then spin this. And then they'll start another one. And then they have to keep them all spinning until they got 10 plates up there. And they keep them all spinning. A little bit this, a little bit this, a little bit this. Yeah. And that's a whole complete life if you ever get there. This is a beautiful, beautiful place where you can keep all your plates spinning.
Do you think that's possible?
Of course, I do it.
Okay.
I got them all going all the time.
All right.
But you have to be aware that whenever you're dissatisfied, you're looking at the wrong plate. Dissatisfaction only comes when you're not looking at what you have. So life of grace is you always have what you need, period. Life is grace. You always have what you need. And when you think you don't have what you need, you're looking in the wrong direction.
Okay.
I'm looking for my wife to fill up that tank, as opposed to maybe I need to go pray, maybe go meditate, maybe I need to go learn something new, maybe I need to have a mentor, maybe I need someone to hold me accountable.
So should people look at the ages and stages and really try to focus on where they're at, or
Some people do. It's a little helpful. It's not so important, as opposed to just knowing those are needs that we have,
okay.
and knowing that whenever you're dissatisfied with what you've got, you're not seeing the whole picture. It's a partial truth.
Okay.
It's like, gosh, I'm broke, but nobody told me I've got this bank account. Oh, my parents left me an inheritance. I didn't know that. See, it's there. Everything is there in your life to keep you balanced and healthy if you know to look for it. But we get caught up thinking you should do more for me, instead of you can't make me happy, I have to make me happy. And all of this ability to shift gears happens maybe around 28 years old, when you really can apply this on your own, because it's only then that the front part of the brain develops. It doesn't fully develop until you're 28. The prefrontal cortex, they measured it's still growing up to 28. They've also measured other parts of the brain that don't develop until your 50s.
Really?
And
What's that?
I saw the information years ago, and I kept trying to find it again for a book, but I couldn't find it because a lot of research just disappears. I don't know why or where it goes.
Yeah.
But anyway, this was research, and it was showed that as you get older, your brain continues to develop if you put yourself in a situation of reconciling differences, conflict resolution, being able to hold opposites together is developing a part of the brain. So it makes sense. I mean, you have to look at one point of view and another point of view and harmonize them.
This is meaningful to me. This is very meaningful.
And so that's how your brain continues to develop as you get older. And if you just don't do that, if you just have this, I mean, look at a bunch of these old crotchety people, my way and the highway. And this was happening to our country, by the way, as baby boomers are now reaching 70. Okay, this is a mass amount of people, and they're all like, I'm this side, you're that side. This polarization of crotchety people, my way is the right way, and I can't hear your point of view.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, people who watch the liberal news can't watch the other news, and the people on one side, the other side can't watch this. They get all upset inside.
Yeah.
So I practice listening to both, but not for too long, because all of it's lies. Okay, everything on TV is we know that drama is lies. We know that reality TVs, by the way, are lies. They wanted me to do a reality TV show, and you think, oh, that's real. They stage everybody, and they also keep you up late. They starve you, so you do crazy things, get all emotional. And then you do a scene, and they say, can't you amp that up again? Couldn't you imagine it a little more like this? And they just drive people to crazy. None of that's real. That's reality TV is not real. We have scripted TV, and we know that's not real. See, that's healthy when you know what's being fed to you is not real.
Okay.
That's drama. That's theater. That's the value of it, is it's not real. It's you're putting yourself into a scene to experience the emotions if you are in that scene, and helps to process your own emotions inside. So I'm into theater a lot. I'm into movies a lot, and good writing and books, because it helps you get in touch with things inside. But when you watch the theater on TV as the news, you're actually thinking it's true.
Oh.
And so now you're believing a lie. And anytime you believe a lie, you disconnect from believing what's true. You lose your ability to recognize truth when you believe lies. So it's huge division, inability to see another point of view, or at least attempt to, without getting your blood pressure up. So those are the 10 needs. And my need is that I have a window that's closing now, because somebody else is expecting to do an interview with me. But I want to sum that last thing up with, so grieving is helping us go back and fill up a lot of tanks that had to do with our early childhood. Whether you find it or not, that's what you're going right into the depths of the monkey brain, because it's bonding. It's when we're children that we bond the most. And then we have sex with someone, then we bond the most. And if a child is young, that's also, you bond very much with the child. But as children go through teenage years and whatever, they're less bonded with you. So there's a bigger distance. But with a wife or a husband, you spent 40 years with them. They're with you all the time. She cooked my meals. I remember one of my moments of huge release in the car was rushing home from the airport after she died, a few months after, and I'm out there doing a seminar somewhere, and I'm rushing home. And I said to myself, why am I rushing? I would always rush to come home to see my wife. And she's not there anymore. So, this would happen, why do I have these realizations again and again? And you see, just then you saw what looks like pain. It's just emotion that still needs to be processed, but there's no pain. And eventually it won't be that strong of a response when I tell that story, but the love will be there. And that's the emotion still needing a deeper level of healing, but there's no pain. And that's what healing is. The pain goes away. They say, oh, it never goes away. It does go away. It becomes sweetness. All I feel now is just like so lucky and so grateful to have those years with my wife. My gosh. So that is the sweetness of healing. That's what we can all go through. And we can go through it as well with financial losses. The same thing. It's not as sweet. I was ripped off by fraud, $4.5 million, all my money at the time. And it was complete deception, orchestrated, everything, and I couldn't get it. And then I had to spend 2 years of lawsuits to try to get it. Never got anything except paid another $1 million to lawyers. So, I mean, it just made me penniless. And during that time, it was a spiritual crisis for me because, I believe in God and God helps me and I'm good, people good to me. And then that happened. It was like, how could you do this, but my faith now is so much greater because everything has come back in greater waves. And I was a little too attached to money at that time. So I freed myself from that attachment as well and able to heal something in my family history. That's another thing we all have to heal when trauma is there. Is when I was a little boy growing up, my brothers who are all older, they all knew what had been going on in the family. And evidently my dad had invested a lot of money in the stock market and lost it. And everybody always said that, well, we don't have as much money because dad lost the money. Dad lost the money. Dad lost the money. And it was like, poor guy, okay, he thought did a good idea and it didn't go down. He nobody ever let go of it. It was always because of dad. We led a great life.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me is in this, I lost all this money. And then the feeling was, oh, we can't do this and this and this because you lost the money. You lost the money. So it was the family curse, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I had to live that through and processed it. I processed it for the whole family where, I made money back. The difference between my dad is he lost that money after he inherited it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't inherit anything. I just made it. So once I did, I could make it back. So it was healing of all that.
So did you heal it before you procreated? Did you heal that in yourself before you had children?
Oh, no, that's after I have children and family and everybody's feeling. One of the stepdaughters kind of felt like, oh, what I found out later is the stepdaughter had said to Lawrence, says, your father, he lost all the money, so you're never going to have your own house, And so this little girl hears that message. Yeah. But I cleared it all up. A lot of it was just carrying it inside of me.
Yes.
If you carry it inside of you, what you carry inside of you, if you're not dealing with it, the world will come at you with it. Mm-hmm. We attract into our situation what we need to look at. Again, we have everything we need. So what is this here to teach me? And it taught me to do something risky, which was based upon a greed for more money. And I had plenty of money and I've always had plenty of money. So why did I take that risk? So I learned to not be greedy, and now more money comes to me. I'm fine. But it was a huge loss. It was a devastation, less than a spiritual financial loss. What it felt like was a spiritual loss because, here I felt like I had this golden touch, and everything I touched turned to gold when it's my creation. But when I depend on something other outside of me, it doesn't work that way. I can't change it's when I was trying to help somebody save their own situation and I would make money from it. And now if I'm going to help somebody, I'll do it without expecting anything in return because that's truly unconditional love.
It is.
So anyway, we all have our journeys and lessons and losses, but we have to come back. And that was a real dark night of the soul for me, the one on finances. That was really big. It was about a year and I processed that and came back and I had to go inside my father and what my father felt like and processed him inside of me. And then had all the family apologize to him for blaming him for not being a good provider when they had a life of luxury compared to other people. So who are they to say such a thing? And everybody makes mistakes and it was only his good nature that did it. So there's a lot of processing we have to do. So once you process your own life, guess what? You got your family stuff. And then after you process that, you got the politics of the world to process. So you can
Yes.
bring those things together in harmony and know that, people do what they have to do based upon the knowledge and experience they have in life, which kind of
Yes.
something I said about healing the past is to realize, and this is a phrase that came to me from Jerry Jampolsky, who wrote Love is Letting Go of Fear, a really wonderful, good friend and a great writer and a great man.
I grew up on that book.
Okay, a great book. He's a great
Yes.
man. And he said, forgiveness is looking into your past and realizing it couldn't be any other way. That's how it had to be, based upon where we were at the time, the knowledge we had, what was needed to happen later, and so forth. And that brings us back to grace. We always have what we need. It doesn't always look that way. And to get back in touch with the ability to find grace is to look at all those other needs that we have and willfully look in those direction. And it's as simple as, if you're trying to not overeat at night, drink water. Usually when you're hungry, you're thirsty. There's so many basic things, and if you're feeling bored and passive, use your body, go help somebody or help your body by building muscle if you're a man. There's so many tricks and everything that I write in my books, how to get out of these loops where we just go down and down and down. And ultimately, although we don't want bad things to happen in our lives, they happen and we can turn them into good things.
Yes.
And that's kind of a cliche, because it doesn't always turn into a good thing if we don't know how to process our feelings. There are many, many people that suffer the rest of their lives. And I believe suffering is optional, pain is not. But pain is a part of life, and you feel it and you let it go and you move on and become a better person. Pain, growing pains. We all have growing pains, but we don't have to suffer if we have this knowledge.
This has been so beautiful. I thank you with all my heart for following your journey. Thank you for sharing this. This is wonderful. And I'm super excited to talk to you next time to get to your next
Okay, yeah,
interview.
they're calling me now.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.